So he spent his whole life working for a corporation, selling something that killed people and is also going to end up killing him. He's got Parkinson's disease and he's had multiple cancers. So his job ruined his life, right? His marriage ruined his life, right? Not his fault. Roundup, Monsanto, they weren't telling him the truth. They had all these studies that you could drink Roundup and be okay, right? Big corrupt thing that our family was a part of. Toxic marriage, toxic family. My dad's like the best person on earth. Generous, loving, caring. He just got a bad situation.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of The Report. Today, I am super excited because I got a special guest. I got someone who is doing big things in the business and the real estate space. He most recently had a $17 million exit with his company, Chamber Media, and he is the builder, designer of Outpost X, a sci-fi movie set hotel in the Utah desert. I got my man, Travis Chambers. Travis, welcome to the show.
Let's do it.
Oh, man, dude, I appreciate you coming down and taking another flight. Took a flight out here last night from Utah. You're flying back to Utah tonight. Quick trip. Appreciate you coming on, my man. I'm a big fan of everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
So, and I got my Pellegrino here, by the way. I just gotta shout this out. You got yours. I got mine. I've been drinking a lot of Topo Chico recently. I don't know what it is, but
You got to drink out of the glass because the cans have that plastic in them.
yes, the glass is way better. But I'll say this. I don't know what it is. I never was a fan of sparkling water until I took a break from drinking. I did 76 days in the late spring, early summer. And oh my gosh, it was great. I went back to drinking July and August, and I was like, sparkling water's whatever. And then I'm in my second season this year of no drinking. I'm doing 100 days this time, and I'm in day like 56 right now, I want to say. Yeah, something like that. Maybe it's day 57. Anyways, I'm back on the sparkling water kick, and I was drinking so much Topo Chico, and I did like an Instagram reel on why I love Topo Chico now. And in the comments, a lot of people were saying, hey, like, be careful. There's a lot of like health concerns that Topo Chico causes this and cancers and all this stuff. I did not do a lot of due diligence on it. But I found when I go out to eat, a lot of places have Pellegrino, but they don't offer Topo Chico. And so naturally, I started realizing, like, I actually like Pellegrino a little bit better. It's a little bit less gassy. And, you parlay that with the health concerns. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to switch over to Pellegrino. And so this is the transition. You came into the office the day that we literally transitioned out of the Topo Chico. I had the last bottle of Topo Chico this morning, and I'm having my second bottle of sparkling water for the day today. And you and I are both sipping on a fucking Pellegrino.
How much do you get paid to say this?
I don't have any sponsor or endorsement deals with Pellegrino or Topo Chico, but hey, I'm putting it out there.
Write this man a check. Retroactive deal.
Yeah, I think it's time. So anyways, I just want to put that out there. If you guys are into sparkling water, Topo Chico is good, but Pellegrino, I think I'm pivoting over it as of today.
I'm going to pivot with you.
I like it.
I'm with you on that.
And also, interesting for the listeners as well, just want to throw this out there. We got a few days left between now and the time change. If you live in an area like California, I believe it's this weekend, Saturday night at midnight, going into Sunday morning. The clock's going to reset. It's going to fall back, and we're going to lose an hour. It's going to start getting dark at 5 o'clock again. So enjoy it. Anyways, hey, man, a lot to uncover here. A lot to talk about, especially regarding the unique stage space.
Hey, Tony Robbins, man, he says winter is time to build. I went to his thing.
Yeah.
I can't remember what he said. He made us all do some chant about winter.
Really?
Winter's my time. When everything's down, this is when I shine, kind of thing. So
yeah. What's his theory behind that?
I'm changing my mindset about winter to be like, this is my time.
What is his mindset behind that?
Behind winter?
Is it because like everyone's like taking the foot off the gas?
Tony says the world is in winter right now. Like the whole world is in winter.
Like in terms of like the winter season, or just generally
just
speaking?
Negative, just like our whole country is just negative right now. People are negative. People are angry. People are rude. People think the economy is just like the overall energy right now it's low right now. And so Tony's whole thing is like, we're in winter. That's where heroes get made. That's where, in 2008, that's where like people built these huge empires is in winter. So we're in winter right now, and actual winter, is the time to grind, man. It's the time to make things happen, when things get hard.
Yeah.
So
I love that, and I agree with it. I mean, from a micro perspective, speaking about like we are truly actually going into a winter season. The holidays are right around the corner, and I feel like naturally a lot of people get comfortable. Kids are out of school, the holiday season, they're doing family stuff, and they're taking time off. And so a lot of things shut down. I don't know us personally, the commercial real estate space completely shuts down. Brokers don't do deals, lenders don't do deals, and things just kind of come to a pause. And so I think naturally, like, you know, for me at least, like I'm in a season of growth right now. I'm in the middle of 100 days sober. And I'm like growing. I'm trying to reinvent myself. I'm trying to grow the business in a lot of different directions right now. And I'm trying to get better, even as a podcast host. And so I think for me, on a micro perspective, it is the time to that you can pass up a lot of people because a lot of people are not pushing on the gas pedal this time of year. Now, from a macro perspective on what you just spoke of, I agree. I mean, I think, yes, there's a lot of fear in the marketplace right now. There's a lot of bad news in the marketplace right now. The capital markets have dried up. You know, a lot of money is off the sidelines right now and in long-term government bonds. We've been in a high interest rate environment for 30 months. There's an election coming up very soon. And so there's a lot of question marks. And I think a lot of people are waiting on the sidelines. And their mentality is basically, hey, I'm going to wait and see what happens, but I'm not going to be the first one to take a risk.
which is the wrong move. It's game time. It's
Yeah,
winter.
I
This
agree.
is where we get made.
Yes, this is
Yeah.
where you double down. I think
Yeah.
you've seen a lot of companies cut back on payroll. You've seen a lot of companies cut back on marketing. And
COVID hurt people's confidence, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like people are still recovering from it.
Totally.
But those that can recover and just get, back into this forceful mode, it's gonna be good.
Yeah. Grant Cardone came on the podcast and he said, it was a quote by Nathan Rothschild. I probably butchered his last name. Nathan Rothschild. Look that up. But he said, when there's blood in the streets,
Yeah.
that's when it's time to attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I agree. I mean, look, for anyone out there listening to this and you're like looking for the opportunity and you're ready to, burn the boats and go all in on something, like, yes, this is the time. Whether you're a real estate agent and you're looking to, level up your game as an agent, or maybe you're looking to get licensed and become a real estate agent, now's the time because a lot of these mediocre agents have washed out of the market. They're on doing day jobs. They become servers. They're doing other stuff right now. They're not focused on being an agent.
This is growth time. Like
yes.
my last company, Chamber Media, we were on a cash accounting basis, right? That's the cheapest way to do your accounting.
Mhm.
Real cheap. And when we sold and professional business managers came in and switched us to accrual, we learned that we were a cyclical business because for 7 years, every 3 months was negative.
Mm.
Every 3 months, I thought the sky was falling. And because of that, we grew new programs and tested new things. And that's why the company grew. But I think this time period we're in right now is that.
Mm.
It's like people are out of cash, right? Things are hard. This is where you become what you got to become right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love what you just said there. And I think like when your back's up against the wall and you don't have a backup plan, like you will do things and you will become things and achieve things that you never thought were possible. And that's just how the world works. That's how human nature works. It's human psychology. And I've been there before. It's like, hey, you get comfortable, you get lackadaisical, you take your foot off the gas pedal and you get smacked, right? And it has happened to me at every single level. And so I've learned my lesson. And so now it's like, okay, I know the things to look out for. And I know that I'm going to continue to get smacked at every level because you don't know what you don't know. But I will say, like, if you're hungry right now and you want it, the bar has never been as low as it is right now. I mean, if you think
don't be a bitch. Don't be a bitch.
Don't be a bitch. Think about where I'm at, personally. Man, like 5 years ago, I was a full-time air traffic controller. I knew nothing about real estate. I knew nothing about business. I was a full-time air traffic controller working airplanes for a living. And I overheard a coworker in the break room talking about how he just closed on a fourplex in Cleveland. And I thought it was the coolest thing. And that was my intro to real estate investing. And look how far I've come in just 5 years. And 2.5 years ago, I knew nothing about content or branding. And look how far I've come in 2.5 years. And so I will say this for anyone listening to this is like, if you are hungry and if you want something bad enough, right now is the best time to fucking jump in. Because I'm telling you right now, from personal experience, if you actually give a fuck about what you're doing and you actually put a little attention to detail and you actually put some thought into whatever you're doing and you actually look at what you're doing right and look at what you're doing wrong and get around the right people, you can run a lot of these motherfuckers over.
Anyone that says, yeah, things are hard right now, The election is causing problems. Cost of living is high. Can't get capital. What that really means is you're saying, I am not willing to grow.
Mm.
And that, you know what else they say? They say the best base for raising capital and becoming a media personality is air traffic control.
Really? No,
Not
that's
just-
pretty much. I was gonna say I've never heard that one before. It's funny because you could almost argue like being a good air traffic controller would like tee you up to be like a really good like underwriter or something, like someone that's very analytical with
Well,
numbers.
I've heard it's one of the most stressful jobs,
It is.
and then you have to be perfect at your job. If
Yes,
you make a mistake, people could die.
it's very cutthroat, and I mean, you're right, and it is
It's a
one of
crazy
the,
job, dude.
It has one of the highest suicide rates in America for all
Whoa.
careers.
Wow.
Yeah, it does.
It's like dentist.
Yeah, it's up there with dentists. But yeah, it's very cutthroat. They have a high washout rate. A lot of people don't make it through the training because of it. But like
So it is a good base.
what do you mean? Like salary wise?
It's a good base for what you're doing. Like, you got to perform.
I see what you're saying,
You
yes.
got to be disciplined. You got to be particular. You got to be organized.
In that regard, yes.
And
Now-
an average person doesn't have those qualities.
That's a good point. Now, I will say though, but what's more important than those qualities, because a lot of those qualities you can delegate out. I think what's more important as an entrepreneur, as a real estate investor, is the ability to sell. Because you got to be able to like sell your team on the vision. You got to be able to sell investors on the vision. You got to be able to sell lenders to give you money. Like sales is the number one component. And in air traffic control, you're not selling anything. You might be selling an airplane to go number 2 behind Southwest because you're going to put Southwest in front of the American. That's maybe the extent of the sales. But I would say sales is number 1, and then attention to detail is number 2. And air traffic control is attention to detail. And hey, like, look, in ATC you can't fuck up, but
Yeah.
in business you can fuck up. Like
Yeah.
I fuck up every week.
You're supposed to. You have to.
You have to fuck up and you learn from
Requisite,
it.
yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm proof of what you just said about sales, because that's the only thing I'm good at. I'm not organized.
That's your strong suit.
I'm not organized. I'm not disciplined. I'm not particular.
Yeah.
Just a visionary that can sell. And it gets me into trouble a lot, but it keeps things going.
Yeah. Also, I think like being ambitious and humble. It's hard to find that combo. A lot of people are ambitious, but they're not humble.
I'm the best at it. being
Yeah,
humble.
there's
I'm
a
just
way.
kidding, dude.
They're the best to be on. Look, there's a way to flex, but be humble. They call it what, the humble flex. You got to show your stuff, and you got to be confident. But I think you always got to stay humble, and I think the ability to be ambitious, consistently ambitious, and consistently humble is a very, very unique combo.
Well, I watched a video of yours last week when we were reaching out about this, and that came across because in the video you were talking about, I could sense you were almost surprised by your success right now. And you told the story in a way of like, I was an air traffic controller, and this is all recent. This is all new things I figured out, and it was just, I don't know. I could relate with you in that way.
Yeah, sometimes I wake up, I'm like, what did I do to deserve this? Like how I feel like I just woke up and like my whole life completely fucking changed.
Yeah. That was very relatable. It made me really want to come out here.
Well, dude, I fucking appreciate you coming out, man. I'm really excited for this conversation. It's funny because like when I jumped on initially yesterday, by the way, thank you for coming on our boutique hotel mastermind call. The entire community was fucking stoked to have you on. And everyone spoke very, very highly of you. And there was actually a few members that actually met you personally, which was really cool to see. But I'm excited for this conversation. There's so much to uncover here, dude. And I think we're going to go wider than I initially thought going in. And that was like, initially when you jumped on our call yesterday, I'm thinking, hey, like we're going to go fucking really ham on the unique stays stuff. But then like now we've been hanging out in the office for like an hour, just chatting about all sorts of different stuff. So anyways, we probably should have started recording all that stuff that we're talking about. But dude, first thing I want to ask you, and then I want to jump into some cool stuff. So kind of a controversial thing that like you brought up before we started recording, and I'm very curious for the story, is you mentioned right after you developed and rolled out Outpost X, your unique stays property in Utah that's just blowing up right now from a social media standpoint and getting a ton of exposure online, you realized and discovered that your 4th grade grandfather killed dozens of children and women back in the day. What the fuck happened there?
Yeah, so I started building Outpost X in southern Utah, And I come from Mormon pioneers on both sides. And so I'm driving there and I stop at this massacre site, and it's called the Mountain Meadows Massacre. And all Mormons know about this thing. It's kind of like the worst thing that has ever happened in Mormon history, right? It was like this huge tragedy. And basically I found out this guy, George Washington Adair, he and a bunch of, they recruited a bunch of Native Americans to scare off people coming through southern Utah because they had just left Nauvoo, and people are like, there's mobs, people are burning down the homes. They were being like oppressed and persecuted, and because they had too much political power in the county at the time.
What time frame is this?
This is mid 1800s. Yeah. And so they pilgrimage to Utah. They escape, right? They escape, and so they didn't want people coming through there. There were rumors that some of these people might have been from Nauvoo, might have been, and they weren't. They were just like totally innocent, pioneers that were going to Oregon. And so anyways, they dress up as natives. They go out, and their goal is to scare these people. Well, someone gets shot, and someone makes a decision to just wipe them out. And my fourth great grandpa was the second in command of that. So the first guy, he got hung. My guy, he got bailed out for $200,000, which is like millions of dollars now. But basically, that whole side of my family was basically like banished, and they just went to this teeny little town, teeny little podunk, New Harmony, and they just became alcoholics until just recently. So it's weird because there's like almost like Outpost X is supposed to be this place of healing, and for people to go enter an imagination world, to connect with their inner child, to leave the world and kind of heal, and to heal through story. And we've got sound bath out there, and we've got all sorts of ways. You're laying under the stars, like there's no light pollution. You're in this clear bubble, just looking at the stars, pondering your existence. And so anyways, it's a crazy backstory, and I felt like called to build these places of healing and wellness. And I'm realizing, I'm like, man, there's something really deep here. This is like a generational wrong that has like plagued that side of the family that I'm supposed to like reverse. And how crazy is it that I end up buying this random place in the middle of nowhere that's 10 miles from that place.
10 miles?
Yeah.
Out of the entire country where you could have bought this plot of land, it's literally 10 miles away.
And dude, it is in the middle of nowhere.
That is fucking spooky.
There's nothing out there. No one goes out to Burrell, Utah. Like, Burrell, Utah sounds like what it is. No one goes there for anything except maybe some meth heads and some trailers doing some Breaking Bad stuff. But so that's So I'm building these unique stays that are supposed to be like these outposts of healing, and it's a really abstract concept, and but whenever I explain it, or whenever people see it, some people get it. They don't know like all the layers, but it's like this thing I'm being compelled to do, man. So,
dude, I got to go check out this property. Where would I fly into from San Diego, and then how long is the drive?
Cedar City or St. George.
Okay.
Hour drive.
Okay.
Or Vegas, 3-hour drive.
I know exactly where St. George and Cedar City is. Fun fact, when I did air traffic control up at LA Center, I did 6 years at LA Center, 5 years SoCal Approach, but my area at LA Center was like Vegas and northeast of Vegas. So we ran approach control in and out of St. George, and then Cedar City was just outside of our airspace, and Salt Lake City's airspace, but we do a lot of coordinations together. But anyways, that's good to know. I'm definitely going to go do a weekend trip up there. I'll bring my girlfriend. We'll check it out, and maybe we can link up if you're in the local area. What part of town do you actually reside in?
Boise.
You're in Boise. Okay, got it.
I got to warn you, though. If you go to Outpost, it's not nice. It's not bougie. It's not luxury. It's like high-end glamping.
Okay.
So you got to be ready for that.
What's the difference between high-end glamping and like staying at a nice boutique hotel?
Okay, so you go to a nice hotel, and your experience is a luxury experience, right? So everything about your experience is seamless, it's perfect, it's comfortable, it's bougie, and you have everything you need. Outpost is the opposite of that. So Outpost is an adventure. It's an experience.
Okay.
So you listen to a podcast on the way there, The podcast is a movie with dialogue that tells you this fictional backstory of this place. That two brothers built this place. It's a story that's happening like 2,000 years from now. And then you get there and you're a character in the story. So you have to be ready for that experience. And so our guests, 80% of our guests, they're kind of like nerdy like that. You know, they want to go into this otherworld sci-fi thing, and you just walk around and it's like a novelty, man. It's like why you would go into Ripley's Believe It or Not. It's a curiosity.
Okay.
Is what it is.
Okay.
And so, but 20% of people hate it.
Really?
Yeah. So if you look at our reviews, it'll be 4 5-star reviews. Like, this changed my life. My kids would rather go here than Disneyland. Me and my partner decided we're going to have kids because of this experience.
Damn.
We stayed up till 3 a.m. watching the stars. I've never even looked at the stars my whole life like this.
Damn.
And then you'll get 1 1-star review. I hate this place. It's horrible. I don't get it. So the place is an art installation.
Yeah.
I think the closest thing you could kind of compare it to would be like going to Burning Man, probably.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, we got Burning Man. That's kind of been, it just happened actually in September.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of friends that have gone. I've never burned before.
You gotta go, man. It's crazy. Yeah. In a cool way.
Yeah. I think I could handle a couple days, but fuck, a whole week is a lot.
I couldn't do a week. No, it's a 3-day. And so is Outpost.
So with Outpost
is a 2-day.
Outpost is a 2-day. And
so
with Outpost, does it make sense to like take psychedelics and mushrooms and all that sort of stuff when you go up there?
Some people do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people do. Yeah. I just say don't like get too wild out there and like get too crazy.
Yeah. What's the typical demographic that goes out there? Age,
dude,
all that stuff.
There is no. It's all over.
There's kids that go out there too, like families.
It's not a demographic; it's a personality that
really?
Goes. Yeah. So we have baby boomers named like Carol and Dave and Susan out there, and you're like, how are these people here? They'll show up in full costume because they loved Star Wars growing up, and then you'll get some burner people who are like asking me if they can be nude, and I'm like, maybe not. Like, we got kids. Then you'll have like families. It is the craziest mix of people. There's literally like no rhyme or reason. It's a personality type. It's a certain type of person that like likes adventure and just discovering this weird thing that some crazy guy built.
I got to ask you, what is a sound bath?
All right, so sound bath is there are these bowls. There's like Tibetan metal bowls. There's like quartz bowls. But it's a thousands and thousands year old thing. And you basically rub the bowl like this and it creates a frequency. And, everything's frequency, right? Like Nikola Tesla said, I think he said the secrets to the universe is, was it like vibration, frequency? I can't remember what he said. But it's really healing, man. It gets you really in touch with yourself. And I've had a lot of spiritual experiences with sound bath, sound healing. So we have an earth lodge there. It's a Moroccan, it's a Viking like timber structure.
Okay.
And on the inside, it's a Moroccan lounge.
Mm.
So yeah, you go in there and do a little sound bath.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, definitely gotta check it out. And only 7 units on the entire property. Are these like individual structures or is it like glamping?
They're like villas.
Okay.
Yeah, so 4 of them are Zen domes. Okay. So it's like a reflective mirror cube with a transparent dome.
Yeah.
And then we have 3 caves, and they're like Middle Eastern inspired caves, like Tunisia, the same thing that it's kind of like the Star Wars caves, Mm-hmm. We're not a Star Wars affiliated project, so don't come at me, Disney.
Yeah. How did you tie the Star Wars stuff into here? So I seen Outpost X times Star Wars theme. Like, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the 2 things that blew me away after I sold my company and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to build is one of my ideas was I wanted to build, I don't know why, but I just wanted to build in like a desolate desert place. And so this listing came up. It's a huge dry lake bed, cracked clay. I wanted to build something like otherworldly because I come from the film, right? So we would build film sets, $100,000 film sets, and throw them away the next day. So I wanted to build a film set that was a hotel, and I wanted to bring people into a movie. So I was trying to figure out, well, what do I build then? Right? I was like, do I build a Lord of the Rings hotel? What do I build? And what do I build without getting sued as well? Right? So I had two experiences that really, really inspired me. One obviously was the Star Wars place at Disneyland. I walked in that place and it just like broke my brain. It broke my brain. And I've never been like a big Disney guy, but I got kids. We went to Disney like 100 times when we lived in LA, you know? And then me and my wife celebrated selling the company by going to Dubai because I spoke at Affiliate World conference there. And we went out to this hotel called the Al Maha. And the Al Maha is a Bedouin, nomadic, Middle Eastern inspired place. So you have like these earthen cob structures with canvas stretched over it. You got a pool all to yourself. And then it's a wildlife preserve full of dunes. And all of a sudden I was running in my underwear with gazelles in the dunes. And it changed my life. I was like, this is one of the most surreal moments. How am I just running with gazelles right now? This is crazy. So, and that place is $2,000 a night. And until then, we never spent more than like $500 or $600 a night, you know, like a hotel in Switzerland or something like that. And so that's when that's when the light went on. And I'm like, that's what this is about. This is about getting people into an adventure, into a surreal experience. That experience was crazy. And we came from the Address Hotel before that in Dubai, which is one of the nicest, bougiest hotels there. The Address Hotel did nothing for me. It didn't inspire me in any way. It was like, it was luxurious and it was nice and had zero impact on my life.
Right.
It was comfortable.
Yes.
You know, and it was $600 a night and not that interesting. There's a lot of granite and you got some millionaires walking around coming out of their G-Wagons. And I'm just like, I don't know. It just doesn't speak to me. You know, it's not art for me.
What's the typical nightly rate at your Outpost X?
We're about $450 a night average.
$450 a night average?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What about like peak season?
Peak season, I think peak season's like 500s maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, and then low season, it's like low 400s.
Okay.
Spread across all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so talk about how did you transform this idea? I mean, you talked about going to this property. You're running with the gazelles. You're talking about staying in a nice hotel in Dubai, and you're like, dude, I was not inspired by the G-Wagons and the rich people walking around. Didn't do nothing for you from a growth perspective. You were just comfortable. And this all makes sense. But how did you go from having this idea to like, okay, we're going to fucking roll with this? Because this is like a higher risk project to me. When I think of, you know, hospitality and boutique hotels, and then take it a step further, you start talking unique stays and Airbnbs and glamping sites. Okay, like that's one thing, but then to think that you're going to roll this out with this crazy freaking idea and this experience, and you're going to buy 240 acres and like really like promote this thing, like that takes a lot of balls to just do that, because it's a fucking crazy idea, and it's something like you don't really know if it's going to work until you do it.
The whole concept of Outpost X stresses out people who know how to do this stuff. Like anyone who's actually built a hotel or been in real estate or done, the whole idea of it like gives people anxiety. Because it's a horrible idea. Like on paper, Outpost X is the worst idea ever. To build from the ground up, to be off grid, to have this like super narrow niche, right? That doesn't cater to a normal person in tourism. But at the same time, like the horrible idea of it is what is making it famous. Like right now, Outpost X is the most viewed destination in the Western United States outside of Vegas.
Damn, really?
If you took the views and the shares of every hospitality experience in the West Coast, or at the very least the Intermountain West corridor from like, you know, Idaho, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, Sedona, that whole area, nothing has had as much reach and as many views and as much interest as Outpost X. Outside of Vegas, like I'm sure the Sphere is getting a way more attention than Outpost. I'm sure a lot of places in Vegas are, but
I'm on the Instagram page right now, and I encourage all the listeners to go check out Outpost X on IG. It's at outpost.x. But yeah, I mean, I am getting a mix of Burning Man vibes and a mix of like I don't even know how to explain it, but I mean, it just keeps me wanting to like see more posts and
You know, you'll
photos.
notice too is like our content is not like luxurious content.
Who are these people that I see like stormtroopers walking around? Are these people that work on site or are these like guests that come dressed up?
That's a shoot that Ubisoft paid for to promote their Star Wars game.
Okay, wow.
So Disney, if you come at me, Ubisoft paid Devin Supertramp, who's an influencer, to shoot a promo for the Star Wars game there. So
Damn.
just I'm gonna fight back. We're not affiliated with Disney in any way though. Like we have no IP infringements. We have no we created our own world and our own story, but Ubisoft decided to shoot a Star Wars promo there for their new game.
Dude, this is cool. So like I'm looking at a lot of your stuff. The content is on point. Whoa, what is that? That's what these structures look like?
That's the Zen Dome, yeah. So do you notice the content is so what I'm trying to do the content is
dude, I'm gonna go stay there for a weekend. This is so sick, dude.
I'm trying to make sure I don't overhype the niceness or luxury of it. I want the content to be like adventure. So we had 30 influencers come.
Dude, that's so sick.
Dude, I'm self-conscious about it because you got to be the right person. You know what I feel like right now? For the first time in my life, I feel like a real artist. Because before I was making ads. You can only go so far in your artistry with ads. But when you dump a few million in the desert and you have complete control and no investors and you build it with cash, you get to build whatever you want, right? Look, not everybody likes Rage Against the Machine, right? But those guys can't be sitting around being like, oh man, not everyone gets it. No, they're like, no. We built this for a specific person, you know? So what Outpost X did for me, man, is it allowed me to be an artist on the most grand scale. It allowed me to build a planet. It allowed me to build a world. So I got to pull the lever on architecture and design. Is the architecture and design good? No, but it's art, right?
Yeah.
I got to pull the lever on music and story with the podcast. I got to pull the lever on, we got sand cruisers you can drive around. And so I got to pull all these like creative levers and it was really fulfilling, but it was freaking terrifying, dude. Like like you said, this idea is such a horrible idea. It's so crazy.
It is crazy.
And there were many times where I'm like, why did I pick the very most difficult way to do this? But now I got my degree, Now I got my construction degree.
But whatever you're doing, it's working.
It's working, man. It's working for 80% of people at least.
Yeah. And so from a review standpoint, I mean, you mentioned 4 or 5 stars, you get one star. That's a 4.0 average. So how do you navigate that from a review standpoint, or it doesn't really matter because you don't have any competition?
So I have to so it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
It could detract some people from going. I have got some comments on social media where people are like, don't go to this place. The reviews aren't good. But here's what I have to do, Rich, is I have to convince myself to not care. And here's why. Have you heard of Azulik in Tulum?
I have not heard of Azulik.
Okay, so Azulik is a jungle, eco-sustainable village in the canopy of the Tulum jungle.
Okay.
It is a masterpiece. And Roth Azulik is like the greatest designer of that niche in the world. In my opinion, he's like designer Jesus for me, for my type of experience that I want to have. That place changed my life, and I'm hoping I can take that inspiration into our project in Puerto Rico, which is a jungle project with waterfalls and stuff. But my point to this is Azulik has got a 3.6 star rating, but if you pull up Azulik right now, you're gonna mostly see 1-star reviews. And what it is
what's their Instagram handle? I'm gonna pull it up right now.
Azulik, Azulik. Anyone that's listening to this, pull up Azulik. This place it'll change your life.
Damn, 2.4 million followers for a property.
If you're not a Karen, this place will change your life. The problem is Karens go to hotels. So this place doesn't have air conditioning, right? There's bugs. You're in the jungle.
Yeah.
It's hot. It's humid. And it's the best experience you could ever have. Unless, if you're into luxury, and luxury is your thing only, don't go to Azulik. But if you're into an adventure, and you're into a surrealism experience that takes you into a total... Dude, Azulik it's like he made a different world that that is in a different time. It's like an ancient village is what you're living in. You're living in a tree house, you
Dude,
know.
this is amazing. I'm looking at the content here. It's just
He has these architectural things that he's chosen. So micro cement is one of his things. So he builds these steel frame things, and he builds the craziest curved structures out of like this micro cement. The other thing he does is he takes sticks and branches, and then he puts this like resin over them. And so a lot of his structures are just made out of like sticks and branches with this like resin over it. And he is such a ideologue about blending in with nature, having everything being made out of organic materials. Everything is curved. Everything is random and chaotic like nature is, right? So there's no perfect lines, no perfect edges. And that's why it's such a magical experience. And 20% of people they don't get it.
Now, real quick, you say it's not luxury, but I'm looking at Zuluk right now, and I'm seeing like, you know, dining right on the beach. I'm seeing couples massages, and so are they providing like, you know, food and beverage and all this other stuff? It's just no air conditioning.
Oh, they got a 5-star restaurant
because it looks elegant. It looks nice to me.
So it is luxury for 80% of people,
mm-hmm.
but for 20% of people, it's not.
Yeah, and I think going there from a content perspective, I mean, the amount of content that you can get is appealing for a lot of folks.
If someone likes Azulik, I'm gonna like that person.
I don't know who would like not want to go stay here. This is like sick.
If someone hates Azulik, then they've got some issues in their life.
Okay,
they hate nature,
this is another one
or
on the
like.
list.
But dude, a lot of people aren't with it, man.
I'm gonna send this to my girlfriend right now, and
some people are non-creative. Some
Outpost
people...
X, Azulik, and if you're listening to this, guys, you got to check out both of these properties. I'm definitely gonna go visit both.
Azulik is the benchmark from which all unique stays are measured, in my opinion. And I'm gonna tell you this, man, Rich. There's not a lot of great unique stays in America. All the greatest unique stays are in Mexico, Central America, the Middle East. America's kind of the Matrix, man, when it comes to unique stays. You know, it's like somewhat uninspired, I think.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, man. I wonder if it's because the culture of America and the financial basis of America is all about franchising. It's all about nail and scale. And if you want to work with institutional money in America, you got to be able to deploy $100 million. You can't deploy $100 million at Azulik. It's like not possible, you know? So Azulik, he had to build this stuff with his own money and get private investors to do it. And now he's building long-term housing, right? So now he's experimenting with how human beings could live in harmony with nature, in a walkable community, the way that our species has lived for all of history until... The other problem with America is it was built around cars.
Mm-hmm.
We're just a big franchise chain, man. That's like the American culture. You know, it's In-N-Out and Subways and McDonald's. And so, but you go to Mexico, man, and Mexico is full of real craftspeople, and they live their art, and they live their family. They have the heart and the soul. And so people know how to make stuff with their hands. And so when you build in Mexico, you're working with people who are like putting their heart and soul into it. You build something in the United States, it's like 2x4s, drywall.
Mm-hmm.
There's not like this craftsmanship in the U.S. that I feel like most of the rest of the world has.
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge with unique stays is you just alluded to it, is the capital markets and the debt and the financing. I think what makes commercial real estate and even residential real estate, but most importantly, commercial real estate appealing in the United States of America, regardless of asset class. I mean, it could be multifamily, it could be industrial, it could be self-storage, whatever it might be. What makes it appealing in the United States of America is the debt environment. I mean, up until the last 30 months, we've been in a very, very low rate, interest rate environment. And even where rates are today, it's still very, very cheap relative to other countries. You know, go to areas like Turkey, the rates are in the 20s, right? And so
I think finance runs America.
Yes.
But if you build a hotel in Mexico, right, it's probably a group of people that that are doing it, right? But I don't know. I think America's just ran by finance people.
And so I think when you look at these unique stays, they're viewed as very, very like high risk for these lenders, right? And so it just doesn't fit their lending box. And so, if you look at a lot of real estate deals on average, you put down maybe 25%, right? And get a loan for the other 75%. And so you're getting a 4x multiple on your investment, right? And so when you pay all cash and fund it with investor capital, you pay on cash, that means just to break even, because you're not getting that 4x multiple, your investment has to do 4 times as good. And so when you look at it in that regard, I think that it's a higher barrier to entry because there's just less lending and less money going after that kind of stuff. But you can use that to your advantage like you're doing, where it's like, oh, well, I'm entering a space where there's not a lot of competition.
So I want to hit you. I want to hit you with I want to pick your brain on this, okay? You know how you get when someone DMs you and says, I want to pick your brain?
Yeah.
And you're like, no. But we're here so I can pick your brain, right?
Totally. Let's do it.
All right. So to what you're saying is I'm on this path right now to figure out how to raise capital for what I think is this magical thing that needs to happen.
Okay.
There needs to be places like this in America that bring people back to a more ancient, sincere, authentic, organic feeling, that you don't get from the sprawl of suburban America, right? So I was at the Unique Stays Summit, and there's about 30 Unique Stays owners there, and most of them are friends and family money with one property, and they cannot figure out how to get beyond that because you can't get a bank loan on some caves in the desert. After 2 or 3 years, I could as a business, but not as a real estate property, right? And so where I'm at now, Rich, is I've spent maybe 100 hours calling everybody I can in finance. 80% of them are just repelled by what I'm doing. It's terrifying. It's not scalable. They don't want it, right? But you look at the cash on cash return, you look at the virality, there's something there. And so where I've landed, and I want your opinion on this, where I've landed is it seems
and
like...
we're talking specifically about Outpost X?
We're talking about Unique Stays.
In general.
Building Unique Stays and financing and figuring out a capital stack for it.
Okay.
So where I've landed is, I think you got to get private investors to do it. And I think the average check size, you want like 50 to 100,000 because you want a check size that doesn't come with a ton of pressure, but it's got to be big enough to be worth managing that investor, right? It has to be accredited investors. It shouldn't be Reg A.
Yeah. I would say have a minimum closer to 150 or even 250.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So challenge me on this. So my thought process was I want it to be a check size where there's not a lot of pressure to it, where someone's like, all right, I'm going to write you a $50,000, $100,000 check because this is going to be a high risk part of my portfolio, which means I want it to be a small part of my portfolio.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
So I don't want the pressure of somebody having 10 or 20 or 30% of their portfolio with me because I don't want that pressure, right? So after I sold my company, I wrote $50,000 to $100,000 checks to a handful of people for various startups.
Let me ask you this question. So these investors, are they going to be debt investors or are they going to have equity?
I think equity.
Okay, so they're going to participate in the upside and they are going to get tax benefits.
Yes.
Got it. So I would say in that regard,
quick bit. If we have a glamping element to this, we can have that can be equipment based, which is a big write-off, right?
Yeah. That's a question for a tax strategist or someone that does cost seg studies. But yes, like if you add glamping sites and all that sort of stuff, to my knowledge, that is going to increase your cost basis, which will increase your depreciation rate.
Accelerated depreciation.
Yes.
Yeah. Now here's this part 2 I wanted to hit you up with. So part 2 is private lending. So, bank loan is really slow. It's difficult. The lending industry right now from banks, the last thing that banks want to touch is this asset class. Right now, banks want the most stable, conservative, guaranteed place.
Sure.
Because they're all holding on.
Lending is tight right now.
So what I have found out, this might be common knowledge to you and a lot of other people, but I just found out there's a massive private lending market that is blowing up right now. And it's a lot of people who used to own banks and they got frustrated with how much the new regulations limit your exposure. They limit how fast you can grow. They limit your exposure to certain industries. You have to be diversified. And so a lot of these people don't like that. So a lot of them have sold these banks, and now they've pooled together these funds, and they're doing private lending. And they like it because it's more profitable as well. And they're not beholden to, like, they can make up whatever interest rate they want. And so these private loans, from what I've been told, they're higher interest rate. Like they're, 8 to 10%. And they're expensive. There's fees and a lot of those things. It's expensive money, but it's debt you can actually get. And so that's what I'm looking at right now for Outpost is am I going to be able to do that? We just got our conditional use permit to add more units. So will I be able to expand with some private investors and then some private lending? And then that's it. That's the model. Don't even touch banks.
Yeah, so two-part question there. So first one is the equity. I would say start with the larger minimum. And obviously it's higher risk, right, which you alluded to, than investing into multifamily or maybe traditional hospitality. And so the way to address that higher risk is you just address it in a higher return, right? So it's like, hey, this is a higher projected return or higher target return. However, I would still have the higher minimum. And the reason I would say always have a higher minimum, and when I did my first couple raises in the multifamily side, I started with a 50K minimum, and then I bumped it to 100K. And then now we're at a 150K minimum with the Summers Capital Boutique Hotel Fund. And every time I've increased the minimum, we'll raise more money with fewer investors, right? And the reason I say it's always better to have a higher minimum is because, number one, it's like a lot of investors, for the first time investing with you, they're going to invest the minimum because they want to see how you do with the minimum first before they give you more money, right? And so if your minimum, let's just say, is 150 and someone has the ability to invest 150, they're going to invest 150. But if your minimum is 50 and they have the ability to invest 150 and this is their first time investing with you, they're going to invest 50. So now you're leaving $100,000 on the table, right? So that's why I would say you go higher.
I think I'm assuming people are going to be nervous to invest in this stuff because it's so new.
Well, you mentioned you want accredited investors only.
Only.
Right.
Is that
accredited investors are going to be more sophisticated. They're going to be more savvy. They're going to be more intelligent. I think with everything you're building, dude, like, bro, you got the attention, you got the fucking media, you got people going over there to shoot freaking promotions. Like
90% occupancy sold out for months.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you can sell that vision.
So my question for you is can they handle that threshold of, like, because it's still early, so it is high risk, right? I believe in it, but it's high risk still. Do you think they'll be able to handle at that 150, 200 threshold? Do you think a typical accredited investor is like, I'm going to take this ride, and it's early, it's not proven yet, but is that amount, do you think they can handle it?
Hey guys, for the first time ever, I'm teaching a group of driven creators how to build a 7-figure brand. When I went all in on my content only 24 months ago, I 4X'd my real estate portfolio, grew my team, and even hosted industry leaders like Grant Cardone on my podcast. Now I'm showing you how to master social media, podcasting, and brand building with proven strategies and a supportive network of business owners. Join a community that's just getting warmed up with 40 plus members and growing. So if you want to learn more to see if we can help you, visit the7figurecreator.com to book a free call with my team. Again, it's the7, spelled like the number 7, figurecreator.com to book a free call with my team. Now back to the show. Yeah, of course. Dude, there's a lot of money out there.
Good.
For anyone that says the money's not out there, then like they're not shaking enough hands and they don't know enough people. The money is out there.
Well, I love that because the adding another 12 units and glamping at Outpost, which will double our revenue and profit, only $1.5 million. So that's only 10 checks.
Yes.
It's not that hard to get 10 checks.
It's not. So ballpark, how much equity are you thinking that you need in this next round?
What do you mean?
How much investor capital are you thinking of bringing in for this next round?
$1.5 million?
To deal with? $1.5 million. Okay.
$1.5 million.
So $1.5 million. Okay, that's.
So they would own. They would own like. I think that's something.
You might be able to raise that on this podcast alone. This
really?
One episode. Yeah.
Hit me up, y'all.
What if any investors listening to this right now are interested in learning more about investment opportunities with Outpost X, which I think is blowing up right now. From everything I'm seeing, this is about to blow up, and this is just the fucking beginning. Travis, where can they go if they want to learn more?
DM me on Instagram.
Okay.
I read every single
at
one.
Travis_Chambers, and you are really good at DMing. Okay, so hit Travis up if you guys are interested in investing passively.
We might have some people that aren't on Instagram. Travis at chambersstays.com.
Oh, Travis at Chambers. Is this not the right Instagram that I have?
No. If someone doesn't have Instagram,
Oh,
we
okay.
get a lot of
Got it.
There's a lot of accredited investors
Email
out
you
there.
Travis at chambersstays.com.
A lot of these guys have like AOL
I see what you're saying.
emails.
People that listen to a podcast, they all have Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've had a few. I've had a lot. We've got like maybe 100 investor leads on our website, and there's a lot of AOL email addresses in there. So I'm like, there's a certain age.
So, anyways, what we do with the Summers Capital Boutique Hotel Fund is we have $150K minimum, and then for investors that invest $250, we have a premium to the pref that they get. So they get a little bonus preferred return, and that comes out of the GP, so it doesn't affect the limited partner portion. And then if anyone invests $500K, then they get another pref. So there's structures to encourage people to write larger checks, and that's how I would always encourage anyone out there raising capital for real estate to structure.
I want to write down some notes, but I'm just going to re-listen to this.
There you go. Okay, so your second question was on the debt.
Yeah.
The debt is interesting because obviously it's a unique stay, and so this is not going to be a standard conforming bank, credit union, or agency, Fannie, Freddie. They're not going to touch this. And you're right. You mentioned 80% of lenders you talk to or mortgage brokers out there you talk to, they're like, hey, I don't want to touch this. Yeah, you're right. And the truth is 80% of lenders out there just suck. And there's only probably, I would say 90% are not very good. 10% are gamers. We call them gamers, like people that actually know how to push deals through, know how to get loans done. But yes, you're right. What you said is there's a lot of non-QM products out there right now that especially are in the residential space, but a little bit in the commercial space as well.
What's non-QM?
It means, what does it mean? I don't know what it stands for, but basically it's non-conforming.
I'm learning your language right now.
Yeah, it does not conform to all the Fannie, Freddie, all this, all these little, basically all these layers and loopholes and all these boxes you got to check. So a non-QM loan typically is sold in the secondary market to a lot of these investors that pull together money that you're alluding to, these debt markets and that sort of stuff and debt funds. And basically what it means to the consumer or to the borrower or to the real estate investor is a lot of these loans don't require tax returns. They don't require personal debt to income ratios, strictly sized up by the DSCR, the debt service coverage ratio, the income the property is going to spit off. And
that's the loan that I've been told is what I want.
Yeah, it's also known as
private
DSCR loan. Yeah.
What?
DSCR loan.
Yeah.
So debt service coverage ratio basically just takes the NOI divided by the new debt service, and they want a ratio of about 1.25, 1.3, just meaning, hey, you have 130% income to debt ratio, so there's a little bit left over. That's all it is. They like the asset. They like the schedule of real estate owned, the experience of the sponsor. You're a trustable dude, then they'll do the loan. Now those are for a lot of smaller deals, smaller multifamily deals. I've done those loans. Residential short-term rentals, I've done those loans.
And apparently they look at bank statements is how that's what they told me.
Oh, to size up the income?
Yeah, because a bank loan,
some of these lenders won't even ask for bank statements.
Because with banks, they want to see 2 or 3 tax returns. Mm-hmm. Right? Personal and business. Mm-hmm. Outpost has only been open for 8 months. So that's just not an option for me.
Yeah, you won't have your first tax return till April of 2025 at the best.
I mean, we had our first return. We had collected $1 million, but we hadn't opened yet.
You know what I mean? That's kind of nice. And that's. But yeah. You should.
We sold it out for a year.
You should highlight that.
Yeah.
You should highlight that because it looks good. So
January will be our second tax return, but we still haven't taken profit.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. So at what you mentioned doing a build out. You're gonna do a second phase build out, right? How many more units are you gonna build?
Okay, so I think 10 units plus glamping and some RV spots.
Okay, what is it right now? You said it's only 7?
7.
And so it's gonna be plus 10.
Yep.
Plus RV. So total how many glamping spots?
I don't know, probably 5 to 10.
And how many total units for people to sleep in?
15.
So 15.
Oh, you mean the whole property?
Yeah, the whole property.
Oh yeah. So we would be at let's say 20.
Okay, 20.
I still got to get through my exact plan.
Yeah. And so
20.
I mean, ballpark. What do you think this thing it makes sense to kind of do the build out, stabilize it, and then do this big refi. Because what kind of loan are you on right now, or is it just all cash?
Okay. I have $1 million private loan, high interest private loan, bridge
Okay.
loan.
And you funded this mostly with your own money and a little bit of investor money?
75%, actually, 50% my money, 25% pre-bookings, 25% private loan, bridge loan.
Private bridge loan. Okay. No investor capital thus far.
Nope.
Okay. So, what's your cost basis? I mean, let's just run through the whole scenario right now. What'd you buy the land for, and then in terms of the build out, construction costs, all that, furnishing, design, how much ballpark are you all in right now?
4.2 million.
4.2 million. Okay. And what'd you buy the land for?
200 grand.
Okay, 200K. Okay, and then what is this next phase gonna cost you to get it to 20 livable or rentable units?
I want to fit it to 1.5 million.
Okay, so you're gonna be looking at about 5.7 all in.
Yep.
Okay, 5.7 all in. What do you think it's gonna be worth when it's all said and done?
I have no idea, man.
No idea. What do you think it's worth now?
To who? I mean, it's probably worth what we built it for, but I don't even know how it would be calculated. And to be honest, no one else does either. There's one group called Sage Outdoor, and they do appraisals for outdoor projects. I think that if I paid them 15 grand to do it, they would know.
Okay, well, let me ask you this.
Let's say this. I think it's worth what we got into it for sure.
I think
it depends on the appraiser.
Yeah, a conservative way to determine would be like, okay,
I've been told there's two ways. One is comps, which we don't have. And so apparently there's another category where they can have like standard rates for destination hotel or something. But like,
yeah, so a lot of commercial real estate
it's a gray area, man.
Most commercial real estate is valued based on the income approach. And so the NOI divided by the cap rate equals value, generally speaking. And then they'll look at comps as well. But in your case, there's not really any comps to go off of.
We're like 900.
But I will say this.
Yeah.
An appraiser in this space, because there's only so many really unique properties like that, would take into consideration comps that are like all over the country that are similar types of unique stays.
Okay.
They
cool.
would. And they will expand a good commercial appraiser. I'll give an example in a couple different layers. So one example of this would be, let's just say a boutique hotel that's in a rural area, that's like a 12-unit boutique hotel, rural area, and there's no other 12-unit boutique hotels that have sold within a 100-mile radius of this property, and people are like, okay, like what is the appraiser going to do? Well, they're going to like zoom out, and they're going to find another similar market that maybe it's 200 miles away that has other 12-unit boutique hotels that have sold, and they're going to take that comp into consideration. They might not match it. It might not mean anything, but they're going to take that comp into consideration. And so with your property being so unique, maybe there's only like, there's nothing just like yours, right? But maybe there's something somewhat similar that's sold in another part of the country.
Hopefully they look at Isaac French's place.
Yeah, there you go.
Because Isaac French, they valued, he built it for what, 2.5 mil? They valued it for what, 5 mil? And then they valued his social media for 2 mil, right?
Yeah, I want to say his exit was closer to like 7 something.
And 2 of it was his social media.
Yeah. And he said there was no value put on it, but he thought the buyers paid an extra $2 million because of the social media. Is what he said.
And just so you know, so what Isaac did is he built his project for 40% less than us for the same revenue because he's better at it. He's an accountant and he comes from a construction family. So I went over budget $1 million to get my construction degree, right?
Yes.
But when we add the 1.5 million, we're right back in it. We're right back in that like really high cap rate.
When you say add the 1.5, oh, got it. When you do the second phase.
So I guess
I see what you're saying. Okay.
My conclusion to this whole thing is I think our valuation really depends on who's appraising it.
Yeah.
If a bank appraises it, it's going to be low. If a specialist appraiser like Sage Outdoor does it, it'll be really good. So it just depends on who's appraising it.
Yeah, a lot of it's going to depend on how you frame it to the appraiser. So, a lot of investors where I see a big mistake made is like they just think, oh, the appraisal's ordered, the lender's going to like communicate with the appraiser, the property manager is going to show the appraiser everything. It's like, no, you as a real estate investor, the lead sponsor, it's your job to put together a package for that appraiser to put your best foot forward. And so this is what we do. this is what we do for appraisal. So one, we always make the intro whenever the introduction is made with the appraiser, because the lender orders appraisal, and then the appraiser will be put in contact with my team. My team manages a lot of these properties, and so they need to get access to these properties to do the appraiser. So the appraisal, so they schedule it, and so we're always super friendly. And then we always give the appraiser everything that person needs to help them do their job. So we'll show them the best comps. We'll do a good job of showing what the property was before from a revenue standpoint, a photo standpoint, and then show them exactly everything that we put into the property from a CapEx standpoint, all the improvements, all the design, all the furnishing, all the costs. And then doing a great job of showing the before and after picture, and then also showing, hey, this is the revenue the property was doing before. This is how it's performing, and then this is how it's doing now. And then building out a pro forma of what we think it's going to be doing in the future. And so that's really important. And then obviously, in addition to that, dude, show up to the freaking appraisal on site, meet the appraiser, grease them up a little bit, be friendly, be charismatic. And, obviously you're not influencing the appraisal, but just being friendly and giving them all the items they need and asking if there's anything else that you could do to help them goes a long way. Yeah. So anyways,
guys, this is everyone listening to this right now. This man's got a smart brain, guys.
And so I think with your property though, like you're right, like one appraiser could give it this value and then another appraiser could give it something that's like $3 million difference. But I think a lot of it's going to come down to what this thing's going to be spitting off, as an NOI perspective once it's all said and done. And so it doesn't sound like you're under the gun to refi right now into another loan. You need to raise some money to do the second phase. And so what I would do, bro, is I would raise that money, do the build out, and then stabilize this thing because you just launched how long ago?
8 months.
8 months ago.
And we've just been doing the pre-sales.
Yeah.
Which was like discounted sales.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're just getting warmed up. And so Outpost X, just like, social media content, like people that are building their brands, like personal brands, like it grows. Like look what happened to Alex Hormozy. He's blown up over the last 2.5 years.
He's the legend, dude.
Yeah, he's blowing up right now, right? Everyone's sharing his content and he's just like growing. It's compounding like crazy.
Alex and I sold our last companies at the same time.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were like, hey man, how'd you make? How much money you make? How much
Yeah, you know him personally?
I mean, we're on a like texting basis.
Sure.
We haven't like hung out. He's not gonna like invite me to a wedding or something.
How do you know Alex?
I think one of his businesses was one of our clients or something.
Okay.
I think we got connected that way.
So when he exited, no one really knew who it was.
Yeah, he wasn't like that big.
No. He had a podcast. He talks about it all the time. He's like, dude, I had a podcast going for 3 years straight. He's like, I had 3,000 downloads a month. No one really cared. And then all of a sudden, the last 2.5 years, he's completely blown up.
Yeah, when I was talking to him, he had just sold, I think it was like Prestige or something like that.
Prestige Labs.
Yeah, and I think he was like 6 months into that like 1 year. You know how he just did his social thing for 1 year, and it took a year to just blow up? I think he was like halfway into that.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
So anyways, just like, Hormozy's brand is like blowing up right now, like Outpost X is blowing up too, and it's just getting warmed up. It's like, I think anything, it's like you got the hockey stick model, right? It's like you grow, but you're not really growing, but you're putting in the work, right? And you're like kind of flatline for a while, and then all of a sudden you hit this like pivotal point and this like inflection point, and then all of a sudden it starts to go vertical. Right. And so like Outpost X is kind of like at that inflection point.
It's right at that it's right at the beginning of that hockey stick right now.
Yes.
And do you want me to tell? I'll tell everybody how it happened.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So we just been quietly fulfilling bookings for 5-6 months, getting all the tweaks, figuring out the hospitality side of things, finishing up construction elements, just kind of quietly cruising, right? So we decided in July okay, the place is at a point now where it's good enough. It's in a good enough spot. We can pump this thing. So we had 30 influencers come in August and September. We gave up like 20-30% of our inventory for that. And the very first influencer comes, gets 1.7 million views. And so a majority of the influencers that have come set records for their views at Outpost. And I was extremely particular about who we brought out. Like, we had really strict criteria. So, I don't want like Instagram models out there, because Instagram models aren't like, they don't drive. So who drives is the traveling descriptive influencers. So they're people who go places and they discover destinations for their audience. So there's a ton of them in Vegas. Like, Vegas is a big one for that. Like, here's the new restaurant in Vegas, And a lot of them are local influencers too. So some of them are like Utah family fun, or Utah foodies, or, Arizona travel tips, and so I learned that strategy because I used a bunch of Boise influencers to sell out the summer for my lake house. So like, even a small influencer with like 30,000 followers, they got 80,000 views on a video for a giveaway up at our lake house, right? It's like $1,000 a night place.
Mm-hmm.
And they sold out our whole summer, like 50 grand.
Quick question on that.
So
what is the key? I know we're digressing, but I'm okay with digressing here. It will circle back with the main point. But with that little lake house that you said, hey, I brought an influencer on and it had a lot of views, 80,000 views. What's the key to getting a lot of views on a influencer stay? Because obviously with Outpost X, we all know like the design element, it's so freaking unique that like it's going to get views no matter what. But like your lake house, like what was the key to a small influencer at your lake house getting that many views?
So it was taking the organic elements. So our own organic videos, it was taking the certain shots, certain elements. It's the same way you do your podcast, right? You're going to look at my most viral videos and you're going to ask questions about that stuff, right? So you have to do the same thing with the property. And so you got to give the influencer the talking points and be like, hey, these are the points you want to make to get the most views with your video. And we've had some cases where we actually just give them a video and we're like, hey, this is a viral video. Cut it up with you in it. And that's what worked at the lake house. And so we did that at Outpost too. But what we added to it though is, I'm like, okay, well, what's my objective, right? Because it's not just bookings. I want upsells too. So we've got a food upsell. So we got to talk about that. Well, let's talk about the food.
Okay.
You'll be fascinated about our food thing.
Yeah, let's talk about it right now.
You want to talk it? Well, let's do this.
Multiple layers of digressing.
We can't be too ADHD. People got to be able to follow this,
yes.
Okay?
Okay.
So we'll finish this one thing. So I have them do the talking points about the most viral aspects of the project, but also upselling so people spend more money while they're there. And then what else I do is I look at what are our top concerns that people have or complaints, and let's talk about those in the video.
Oh, so you address it.
So a big one is there's nothing to do out here, right? So we talk about what there is to do. What do you do at Outpost? And then sometimes it's like, you do nothing. That's the whole point. Come out here and do nothing. Get ready for that. So that's what worked. It's like picking the right influencers, the really descriptive travel influencers. We don't want like Instagram, ass cheek models. That's not going to move the needle. People want to, it's the curators of the tourism, the curators of hospitality. Like, hey, this is where you want to go. This is the experience, and I'm endorsing this experience. That's what works. That's what works. And so I think what happens is a lot of people do influencer marketing in hospitality, but they don't get the right influencers. I had a guy named Steve Cook.
How do you know who the right influencer is and who's not the right influencer?
It's what I just described. So they have to be a descriptive experience travel influencer. So I want the influencer who's talking or at least has voiceover and is explaining the experience. Because I want people to understand and be educated about what the experience is.
Because some influencers are not comfortable speaking and they just do like little texts and they just do little B-roll.
Yeah. So I want it to be descriptive. Voiceover. I want it to be descriptive because descriptive is like more like an ad. It's selling the place and that creates action. So if I'm scrolling on my Instagram right at 1 a.m. and I see this influencer's like, let's just say Utah family fun, right? She talks about fun things to do in Utah. Yeah. She's like, we went to this place called Outpost and they have hot tubs. They have sand cruisers you can drive. Boom, I'm in. But if I'm scrolling and I see an Instagram model and she's like posing at Outpost, right? Butt out. I'm like, I don't know where that is. I don't know what it is. It's not about the place. It's about her butt cheeks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
That's a different. She's selling something different.
And how do you? Because Isaac French talked a little bit about this, but one thing he said he did was he would have them do a giveaway to their audience. Because a lot of people, and we've made this mistake in the past, where we will give the giveaway to the influencer to come and have a free stay. But Isaac's like, no. You have the influencer give a free stay to their audience, and then like a lot of people are going to share it, and so that's going to give better reach. But also that's like a thing of value to the influencer, because now they're giving value to their audience, which is almost more valuable.
Every single influencer, that's what we've done.
Okay.
The giveaway is
to their audience.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's probably the most important thing.
Yes.
Yeah. But you could do a giveaway with the wrong influencer and get no bookings. So it's got to be the right type.
The right type.
Descriptive.
And their audience, I imagine it's very important for their audience to be into unique stays.
Yeah. And it's hit and miss. Like we had 30 influencers there. I'd say 80% of the views were driven by like half of them. So we had some pretty big ones that flopped. We had some small ones that crushed it.
Do you think the big ones flopped because it was the piece of content wasn't done correctly, or do you think it was because it was the wrong audience?
It's a combo of the content and the audience.
Okay.
Yeah. And the thing is, you just don't know. It's you can't predict it. And so working with influencers is a volume game.
Now, once you have one or two influencers where they put out a piece of content on your property and it hits, now you can take those two examples, those Reels or TikToks, and give it to the next influencer and say, this one already went viral. Just replicate this and put it in your own words, right?
Dude, we have gotten such big influencers for free because of that. So what's happened is because we built a viral hotel that's freaking crazy, and people see it and they're like, what the hell is this, right? Because that we've aligned our incentives with influencers' incentives. And so they come and they want to make this place look as amazing as possible because they want the views. So I don't know. It's just a great alignment, if the property is designed for that. So dude, it's honestly like, I can't act like I like perfectly planned all of this. Like the fact that it's worked this well is crazy. It's a crazy insight. Like if you take the one insight that we just talked about and you build a property around this insight, you'll print money. It's crazy.
Yeah, dude. Like I mentioned yesterday's hotel mastermind call, I was like, dude, talking with Isaac French really changed my perspective on hotel investing, because up until this point, I've always knew the value of the personal brand, but I've always overlooked the power of the property social media account and the amount of followers and engagement from a social media standpoint of the properties. And so talking to Isaac, it really opened my eyes. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm missing a huge opportunity here. And like, we really need to be capturing the best Instagrammable moments and parts of this properties and like really going all in on the marketing and the content and the B-roll and really dialing that in. And that's something that we have not, and it's 100% on me. And it's something that we always did. And we have KPIs and we're like, hey, we're posting, to these accounts, but I'm like, we're not doing it to the same degree or intention that we should be doing it. And now talking to Isaac and talking to Ben Wolf and now talking to you, I'm like, okay, guys. And I made this pivot recently. I'm like, no, we're going all in. We're going to revamp everything. We're going to really, really extract a lot of the elements from a social media standpoint for all of these properties to give ourselves the best chance to win and to put our best foot forward.
I'm starting to realize that it's the number one value prop.
Yes.
It's in a way, it's the same exact principle as what you're doing with your personal brand and with your fund.
Yes.
It's the same concept, just with hotel,
I know. And now I just got to translate that over.
But it's like, this is such a new way of doing it. And everyone is just obsessed with Isaac French right now, because you look at the model, his model blew away every common conception there is in hospitality. He built it for $2.5 million, sold it for $7 million in 2 years. I mean, that's crazy. Andy had probably like a 20% cap rate during that, some crazy cap rate that's like doesn't exist, is not supposed to exist. So there's a model here. And so the next step of this conversation, Rich, is like, now how do you scale it? Right? Because scalability is the problem. And so I've got some theories on that. And first is figuring out the capital stack, which I think I'm getting close to figuring out. We'll find out if it works. This is another experiment in this journey. We'll figure out if it works.
So to circle back real quick, we digress, but what I was saying is like from the equity portion of that two-part question, it sounds like you just need a little injection of investor equity. Maybe you just structure the investors as debt and take on additional. How much debt do you have?
Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
That's a payback mechanic?
Generally speaking, it all comes in a cost of capital. Generally speaking, debt is going to be a cheaper cost of capital than equity. So let me give you an example. Debt can just typically shorter term. So let's just say 24 months, for example, and let's just say you pay 12%. Okay. It's fixed monthly rate of return at 12%. And then you get your money back paid in full in 24 months. So the cost of capital there is 24%, right? On the flip side, if you bring in investor equity, and let's just say the duration of this project is going to be 10 years, and the expected or projected IRR is 20% a year for 10 years, that's a 200% cost of capital to you versus 24%. And you get to own 100% of the deal and capture on all the upside, right? So it's a balance, but you don't want to take on too much debt because you got to have some sort of exit strategy. So how much debt do you currently have on the property?
1.1 million, 1.3 with interest.
Okay. So if you wanted to, you could bring in, you need 1.5, another 1.5-ish?
So I need to replace 1.3 debt with a lower interest because it's high interest bridge loan. And then I need 1.5 to expand.
Okay. Oh, you need to get out of the 1.3 right now.
I want to because it's high, man.
What are we talking?
Like I don't even want to. I'll tell you, it's 20%.
Okay.
And it was supposed to be like a 4-month bridge loan, and then we opened late and went way over budget. So that bridge loan ballooned, and so now I got to replace that thing because that thing is brutal.
What I would do is this. I would go source 2.8 million. Let me ask you this. You said you want 1.5 more, but like if you had 2.5 more, would you be able to do a lot more? Or do you have a clear path to do something even bigger?
So here's my thing is I don't want to go too big at Outpost because location. And why I bought out there is I saved $1 million on my capital gains because it's an opportunity zone. That's also why I bought in Puerto Rico. I didn't buy for the Puerto Rican tax benefits. I bought for the opportunity zone. So opportunity zone for you all listening is a program where you buy in a low income area to increase the jobs and income of that area. And the program was you got to hold it for I think the program now it's like 7 or 8 years. So you don't fully wipe out all your capital gains. But that's why I built in these two places. So I went $1 million over budget, but I saved $1 million on taxes. So, but anyways, Outpost is not in an ideal location. Like the fact that we're bringing people out there it's a miracle, right?
Yeah.
If our project was in Zion, an hour and a half west, obviously the land would have been $1 million or $2 million, not $200,000.
Right.
But our ADR wouldn't be $430. It would be like $700. It'd be double on the same.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Or if it was like on the outskirts of San Diego, you'd be able to charge a lot more because it's just.
So we broke all the rules. We did everything you're not supposed to do, and it's working. So if we do it in a spot where you're supposed to do it,
I see what you're saying.
It'll print
and
money.
also I think I
so
know
I don't want to go too big with Outpost. So I think
yeah.
I don't want to go bigger than like 20 units. And I actually think I've done a ton of interviews with people who own projects and unique stays. The sweet spot is like 20 to 40. Everyone that goes beyond 40, you end up competing and cannibalizing yourself.
Yeah.
Like your unit volume is competing with your unit volume.
Scarcity creates demand also.
Yeah.
And so it's good to say, hey, we're sold out. Here's the wait list.
And I'm preaching to the choir because the boutique hotel game, It's hard to keep a 200-unit hotel filled. It's really easy to keep a 20-unit. And people ask me all the time, like, aren't you worried that like Outpost X might be like a flash in the pan trend? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's 7 units, 20 units. I got 150,000 website visitors in the last 2 months. My conversion rate has to be like 1/1000%. So I'm not worried about it. Now, if Outpost was a 200 unit, I'd be very worried. So anyways, I think what we're getting at here is like, I want to get Outpost to 20, and that's where we were talking, the capital stack for that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's where you were at.
So, I think we got to get you out of this bridge loan. And so I would say, dude, that you can go about it two ways. And I would leave this up to you, but I would say option one would be, it sounds like you need about 2.8. You need 1.3 to pay off that initial bridge loan, and you need under 1.5. So let's just call it $3 million. So you need $3 million. So you can go about it two ways. You can either go about it in, hey, I'm gonna bring on 1.5 in debt. Okay, investor debt. I'm gonna use that to pay off that first note, and then I'm gonna get the other 1.5. I'm gonna offer investor equity, 1.5 million investor equity. They're gonna get upside tax benefits, and they're gonna be along for the ride for however long I own this property. Or you can say, hey, this is option two. I'm just gonna go raise $3 million of investor debt. I'm gonna give my investors a fixed monthly return, something like 12%, paid monthly. And then once I do the build out, I stabilize this asset and I go and refi into like a long-term note. Then I will pay back those debt investors. I'll pay off the entire $3 million. In the event that you get to that refi and there's a gap to fill where you got to bring a little cash in, you can either fund that with your own money or money from another project of yours, or you can offer some of those $3 million worth of investor debt. You can offer a couple of those investors a chance to roll their debt into equity.
Well, which one do you think is the way to go? By the way, option two, of the 10 people I interviewed, you're the second person to talk about option two. And I literally talked to a guy yesterday who was like, hey, have you thought about like, why don't you raise debt instead, investor debt? So what do you think? What's the pros and cons?
I think what's going to be easier for you, and I think that's going to have more upside for you, is going to be option two, where you just raise the debt. It's going to be quicker, easier.
It's lower risk for the investor too, right? Because they're going to get their money back, right?
They're not stuck in this thing forever. There's two investor appetites out there. There's one investor that wants quick, consistent, steady cash flow, a higher rate of return, and then they want their money back quicker. And I wouldn't say a higher rate of return, but it's higher cash flow now. And then you have another investor that's like, hey, I don't need this money for a long time. I just want the tax benefits. I want a slow drip, and then I want the equity on the back end. So like a lot of the equity of these deals, like they come when you exit, right? And so that's where the big payday is. And so it's really two different investors, and those investors are both out there.
See, I have to hold.
Look, whatever you want to do, you could do.
So I don't have my exit plan's far.
Yeah.
So I don't have a great exit plan motivation here because I have to hold, or else if I sell, I got to pay those capital gains, right?
Yeah. I would personally, bro, if I were you, I would probably just go all investor debt, because one, you're still going to build trust with these investors. You're gonna be paying them monthly cash flow, and then when you pay them back in 2 years, they're gonna want to roll their money back into another project with you. So you're gonna be building your investor database.
They also become strategic mentors too, right?
What do you mean when you say that?
Like they become strategic resources too, like bigger than the money, right?
Yeah.
Have you found that to be true?
We have a very diverse investor community, but one of our investors is Carlton Dennis, and he's like probably the top, one of the top tax strategists in the world. And, now me and him have a great relationship because of that. We've ripped a couple podcasts together, but like, yes. And that's just one of many examples. But
I have one investor in the partner company. He wrote me a $400,000 check, no due diligence. We're best friends. We're brothers now. He took me to the Tony Robbins thing. Whenever I have a rough week, I call him, and he is a ride or die, man. He's in. So it's a strategic investor, right? I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What percent? You can't really answer this on a podcast.
Well, ask it and I'll tell you.
Tell me after the podcast, what percentage of your investors are a pain in the ass?
I'll tell you right now.
What percentage of your investors are like big brother, big sister, helping you grow? They're there for you. They believe in you. And even when things don't go perfect, they're like, hey, man, do this, this, and this. We're going to fix this, They're in it.
I'll tell you right now, because I'm very transparent. I talk about everything. Every investor in our funds they have 100% trust in what we're doing, and they let us do our thing. And we always are
Is it because you vet them?
We vet them. Yes. Now, before I started the fund and I was doing some single asset syndications, I did have a couple investors baked in there that weren't an ideal fit.
Hey, Rich, where's my money? Hey, Rich,
Yeah.
hey.
But I was more green back then, and I didn't have the options that I do now. Now I can tell people no. But like back then, I was like, dude, I would have 10 calls or 10 meetings with one person just to raise $100,000. And now, people are wiring in larger chunks, and I don't even have conversations with them.
Can I ask you how big the fund is?
The fund is.
If you don't want to share, don't share. It's fine.
The fund is 8 digits. Yeah. So it's nothing crazy.
Yeah, it is, man. Hey. Yeah, it is.
But I'll say this.
You were an air traffic controller 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's big. It's a big fund.
Yeah. Now I'll say this, and this is important for anyone listening to this that plans on raising money, or maybe you are raising money, is like, as much as investors are vetting you, you should be vetting these investors. And the truth is every single investor that we have, they trust us. We welcome questions, and we're very transparent. The wins, the losses, and we go above and beyond with our investor reporting. We do monthly reporting, videos, reviews. We share a lot of stuff. Now, what I've noticed is a lot of the investors that don't end up investing, when we get on these calls, they're going to start asking all these questions. Like, they want to go drive by these properties, and they want to see this, and they want to see that. And these are questions that all of my investors don't ask, right? And so I'm starting to learn like what investors that actually write checks ask, and what investors that have never written a check ask.
Okay, that's so interesting you say that, because that same thing happened with clients at the ad agency I had. So if we sent them an agreement and they redlined the agreement, I said, sorry, we're no longer interested in working with you. If there was more than if there was more than 3 lines of red ink on that agreement, conversation's over. And not just over, but like, hey, thanks, but no thanks. You're not who we want to work with. And then they tell their friends, like, Chamber Media wouldn't even work with me. And then their friends are like, oh, really? Oh, I want to work with them, right?
Yes.
So it's interesting that you say that. If they didn't red ink the thing at all, I'm like, this is going to go great.
Yeah. No, 100%. And you know what? It's like, it's okay to tell people no. People don't like being told no, but
they kind of do, though. Sometimes we like it, man. When the beautiful woman at the party tells you no, you're like,
yeah. And here's the thing. It's like, I know
something to chase.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I think it comes with a little bit of like reps. At first, my first few raises, I would never do this, but now I'm like, we got some pretty badass investors. Like, I'm not going to say any names, but like, we got professional athletes in our fund. Like, we got some pretty high profile people. And we got, real estate tax strategists. We got all sorts of people that are very savvy and intelligent, and they invest with us, and they 100% trust us with decision making and all that. They stay out of our lane.
How does that feel?
And so when I have,
Rich, I want to know, how does that feel?
I mean, it's kind of weird, bro. Like I said, like 5 years ago, I was working full time as an air traffic controller, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have all these opportunities, which is like I've never had before. I'm like, it's fucking weird.
It's where you're at in your life right now. It's pretty crazy, man. It's happening to you. Does that ever strike you, like this is happening right now to you?
A little bit, but I got to be honest with you, man. I am so like in a season of growth right now that I'm just like looking at like what's in front of me and what is this next level and like how do I get to the next level, and I'm building it. That's
the problem with you and me. You're not even soaking it in, probably. I'm not even soaking in Outpost X right now.
It's never good enough.
All I'm thinking about is, God, I got this high interest loan. I'm an idiot. I should have this replaced already. Oh man, I gotta get this balance sheet. I'm freaking out. Like, okay, I gotta get my balance sheet. I gotta have 2 pro formas, one based off of the discounted pre-bookings and then our future full rate bookings. And all I'm thinking about is the mess or the problems, right? But to everyone else that's looking at me right now, they're like, that guy sold his ad agency and then he just like built like a village theme park thing, and people are going to it. I feel like, man, sometimes we gotta look at ourselves from the outside.
Yes.
It's what's a good example of it? It's probably like take an actor who's not like top 50, but they're like top 200,
Okay.
right? They're in a movie, right? The movie does 100 million on like a $20 million budget or whatever. They're sitting there probably just miserable. Like, I'm not a leading man in Hollywood. I'm not The Rock. I'm not Chris Pratt. But to everybody else, it's like, you're a movie star, dude. Like, you were in a freaking movie that did $100 million. What the hell's wrong with you? And I think that's where we're at right now, is like, I always forget that. And people will say it, and it's like, dude, man, this is happening. But who do I listen to, right? I listen to the shit comments I get. I listen to like some finance guy who doesn't get it. You know what I mean? Why is that?
Dude. I don't know why it is.
Why do we focus on the problems instead of like relishing in where we're at? You know what I mean?
I saw a post that actually
Carlos, you're sitting here working with Rich Summers, shooting a podcast. Sorry.
Awesome. And
what did I say? What did I say?
Carlos.
Sorry.
But by the way, we got to get Oscar a mic. Oscar, we're gonna get you a mic because like you're over there. He's over there like he's always got like some sidebar comments that the audience can't hear, and I'm putting it out this right now. The listeners, Oscar's our videographer. He runs all these podcasts, and I mean he was here when Grant Cardone was in this seat, episode 51. And he's always like sidebarring, he's laughing, he's like got all this stuff to say, and
Dude,
like we got to give him a microphone.
He's such an energy, man.
Yeah, we can hear him, but the audience can't hear him.
Oscar, look at your life right now from the outside. All right, everyone that's listening to this podcast right now, I want you to do something. I want you to look at your life from the outside without any of the problems, and I want you to look at like what you are doing right now. You know, even if you're in the shit and you kind of suck right now, there's something that you're doing that is like spectacular.
Yes.
You know? And that's what we got to hold on to, man. That's what we got to hold on to. I mean, Rich, you are within a few years of a 9-figure fund. That's crazy. You're going to be in the top 1% of funds.
Well, when I say 8-figure, we're like really low 8-figure. 9-figure is a long way to go.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
It's not though, man. The guy that gave me a private loan, he has a $300 million fund. He owns $1 billion of real estate. He started 13 years ago in Boise, and he has no brand.
Yeah. That's when I hear people that raise all this money with no brand, I'm like, that's freaking impressive.
He got into some old Idaho money, man.
Country club money.
Yeah, farmer club money.
So this
landowner club money.
This video that I saw the other day. This
shout
is
out
actually
to Blake.
Yeah, this is actually Carlton Dennis on his feed. He put this video, and it's basically for perspective, but basically it says, watch this for some life perspective that you need to have. And so it goes to these different clips of B-rolls. I'm going to read out these clips. So first clip is a guy in a private jet, and it says, the billionaire in a private jet who misses the old days. Then it's the millionaire flying first class who wants to own a private jet. Then it's the businessman in a fancy car dreaming of becoming a millionaire. Then it's the employee in a cheap old car who wants the fancy sport car. Then it's the unemployed cyclist who just wants a job in a car. And then it's the pedestrian who wishes he had a bike so he'd have to walk. And then it's the paralyzed man in a wheelchair who would love to be walking. And it's a terminalized ill that just wishes they could be alive. And it says, until you can learn to be grateful, I caught the end. You'll never appreciate something like that.
I was watching Avatar yesterday, and Jake Sully's in a wheelchair, and I'm like, I got legs. Winning. That's what you just said is so true, man. And I get so stuck in what you just read. That's me all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I had a GT3 RS. I sold it just as an exercise in what you just said.
You sold it just to be like, hey, I want to see what it's like not to have all this?
Just to be like, I don't need this. It doesn't fill me. I don't need it. I did it.
And what was, cause okay, so like you buy the GT3 RS, and how long before you're like, it's like whatever now? It was about
a year and a half, 2 years.
Okay. Of driving it, and then you're like, whatever, I don't like think about it anymore.
Yeah, and I agonized over selling it. And I like forced myself to sell it because I'm like, I need to know what it feels like to just like go backwards.
And what did you drive after that?
My truck.
Okay, and then what did you feel after getting rid of the car?
This is the craziest thing, dude. Is I was like, if I sell this, I'm giving up on myself. I'm like my son is gonna be like, he was crying when I sold it because he loved it. It was so cool. I mean, you're a little kid in a Hot Wheels car that goes 200 miles an hour. That's crazy, right? And when I sold it, there was no feeling like nothing lost in my life. Like the second I got rid of it, it was just like, that didn't matter to me at all. And I thought it mattered so much. Isn't that weird?
That is weird.
I had like put so much energy towards that material thing for some reason. I think it maybe it was insecurity or ego or I don't know what. There's also like, if you just love cars, that's a totally different thing, right? But dude, when I sold it, it was just like, I didn't actually care about it at all. But maybe it's because I had it. Maybe it's because I had the experience, and then the experience was boring.
So it didn't make you want it again.
No,
It didn't. Interesting. So like,
no,
do you think you would buy another sports car down the road or a luxury car down the road?
dude. If I did, I think I would probably just buy the new Corvette because you don't have to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
It's fast, but it's like 80 grand, and I could just beat it up.
Okay.
But like, dude, let's say someone handed me like 40 mil right now. I don't think I'd go buy a Ferrari because I feel like it would like complicate my life a little bit.
Interesting.
Maybe there's a level if I have like 10 cars like that and I have someone who works on them and takes care of them. But then I got to worry about that guy coming into my shop. Is he going to steal from me? Is he going to like walk into my kitchen and annoy me? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So it sounds like we got to give Oscar a mic. He's been over there cracking up this entire podcast interview.
Dude, it was complicating my life. Right now, I'll say this. I have a friend, Chandler Welling, total stud. He's part of Podium Racing. You know those racing rigs that all the Rogan and Segura, all those guys are getting?
No.
Oh, dude, they blew.
What is it?
It's those sim racing rigs with like the screen and then the seat moves and stuff.
Okay.
He started that with some buddies, and it's like they're already like 50 mil plus. They're printing like $20,000 sim rigs.
Really?
Rogan, Snoop Dogg, all these
and
guys.
people are just getting them for their houses?
Yeah.
I got to look this thing up.
Now, my buddy Chandler,
what is this thing called?
Podium. I think it's Podium 1, Podium Racing.
Podium Racing.
I think you might need, hey, if you got if you need some write-offs, bro, I think that counts as I think you need one in the office.
This qualifies for code section 179.
I'm going to send this pod to Chandler. And
Chandler, dude, this is
Chandler,
not
I want you to
like,
hook up Rich with this.
You were when the way you explained it, I was just thinking like something that's kind of Mickey Mouse, but this is like a legit.
Oh,
this is a legit setup.
It's like state of the art Formula
This
1.
is something that
you
would see at like Dave and Buster's, right? Or even better than that.
Dude, that's the equivalent of like $100,000 chopper in your garage, or like that's a piece of art, is what that is. That's an art piece you put in your home. That's like putting an F1 car on the wall or something.
And you said Joe Rogan's behind the design of this?
No, he bought one.
Oh, he bought one. Got
it. Their client list is nuts.
Got it.
All A-listers. But my point is, my buddy Chandler, I bought the GT3RS from him. Chandler loves cars. His whole world is cars. Cars fill him. They fill his soul. I love cars, but it didn't fill my soul, man. It didn't fill my soul. It's not. I got to the point where I'm like, I could go on a 2-hour drive right now, go as fast as I can around these turns, or I could like go play catch with my son. And I just got to the point, I'm like, this is a distraction for what actually matters to me. I got to the point where I'm like, I'd rather go on a run than go rally this thing.
Hey guys, if you're as passionate about real estate investing as I think you are, you need to hear about the community I wish I had when I started investing. Hotelinvesting.com, our boutique hotel investing mastermind community, is a group of 50 plus like-minded investors all building their portfolios in the boutique hotel space. We teach everything from how to source the right deals, how to get these deals deaded up, how to raise private capital, how to manage and operate, but ultimately how to 2 to 3x the value of these hotels in just 12 to 18 months. But more than that, it's about being part of a community that pushes you to grow and succeed. So if you're ready to take your real estate game to the next level, visit hotelinvesting.com to book a free call with our team. Again, it's hotelinvesting.com to book a free call with our team. Now back to the show.
I got to be honest with you, man. Like I bought I have 2 cars. I have a G-Wagon and I have a R8. Thank you for reminding me. Audi R8, and I don't know the last time I drove the R8. Like it just sits there. I think I drove it for a fast lane event, like a rally that was like maybe a month ago. No, this is in August. Dude, I haven't drove it since late August. What are we in right now? We're almost November. It just sits there. And I know you should drive a car at least once every couple of weeks. That's good for it. But like to your point,
Dude,
yeah,
I drove.
it's like, dude, it's
I
like,
drove the GTR3. I drove the GT3 every day for 2 years.
did you?
I sent it, dude.
Yeah.
Put 20,000 miles on it.
Yeah, I don't drive a lot, to be honest with you. I walk into the office, I walk home. I live 4 blocks away. I live in an area where everything's walkable. The airport's right here. So I don't drive a whole lot, but I do go to the gym every morning. But like, you just take the wagon, and it's a lot more like comfortable, and it's just better for every day.
I went to some car shows,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I'm gonna get into this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I go to the car show, and you just like stand there and talk to some guys about some cars,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh yeah, what do you got in there, like PDK?" And I'm like, "I don't know, I don't really care, you know, like I don't know."
Yeah.
I was like, I got to the point where I'm like 7 or 8 of these car shows, and I'm like, I went to SEMA, and I'm like, I don't get it. I want to go race a go-kart, no consequences. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I joined Fastlane Drive for the networking, and so it's this car club. It's probably the biggest car club in the world. They got a lot of chapters everywhere. But anyways, there's a chapter here in San Diego. They got one in LA, Miami, Scottsdale, Austin, all over. But anyhow,
that's a reason. That's a reasonable use.
yeah. And so anyhow, I joined this car club for the networking. I'm not a big car guy, and I'll do a couple of the events a year. And I've met a lot of like really awesome people through the club, and so that's been cool.
I was hoping that was going to happen, but you don't meet people with a car in Boise, Idaho.
Not in Idaho, no.
You might
That's
meet
pretty
some
funny.
guys like if you're going snowmobiling or like big game hunting or something. But
Yeah, that's pretty funny, dude.
yeah,
That's pretty funy.
I think I was just in the wrong spot for
Yeah.
that.
So I want to transition real quick. You had a $17 million exit with Chamber Media. How long did it take you to from when you started that business to when you exited?
7 years.
7 years. Okay. And what did you initially like launch that company to do? And then what was that company doing when you, not in terms of revenue, but like, what was your vision when you launched it? I'm curious. And then 7 years later, when you guys exited, how were you guys actually making money? Because I'm sure there was a ton of pivots along the way, and you don't know what you don't know when you start a business. And so I'm curious, what was the difference between when you started it and how you thought you were going to make your money, and then how you exited and how you were actually making money?
Okay, so my goal was to make $100,000 a year by 30 years old. That was my life goal. My dad was a director of sales at Monsanto on the Roundup brand, which is the glyphosate weed spray that's killing everybody.
Yeah, you were saying.
Okay, our whole yard was full of that sprayed of that crap all the time. So I watched my dad leave at Monday morning, 4 a.m. to fly across the country because he had a horrible marriage. My mom's super crazy. So he worked to get away, right? And he'd come home Friday night every week, my whole childhood, right? So he spent his whole life working for a corporation, selling something that killed people and is also going to end up killing him. He's got Parkinson's disease and he's had multiple cancers. So his job ruined his life, right? His marriage ruined his life, right? Not his fault. Roundup, Monsanto, they weren't telling him the truth. They had all these studies that you could drink Roundup and be okay, right? Big corrupt thing that our family was a part of. Toxic marriage, toxic family. My dad's like the best person on earth. Generous, loving, caring. He just got in a bad situation. And so he spent his whole adult life in this situation, right? Now he's sick. He's living like a 90-year-old. You know what I mean? He's remarried to this wonderful woman who's just like the joy of his life. And he's got peace. He has happiness. You know, best guy you could ever
Dude,
meet.
I'm sorry to hear that, my man. I'm very sorry to hear that.
Really
that.
rough, bro. Really rough.
What year did this whole thing go down with Roundup?
Well, I was 25 when my dad told me he had Parkinson's, and he had to retire, forced into retirement on disability. In the prime of his career, like my dad was entering, you know, he was a corporate employee, right? Not like he was making a few $100,000 a year, right? At his peak, he was doing great. I mean, you know, 15, 20 years ago, that was a lot of money, right? But he was getting into his peak earning years. Like he had an offer on the table to go be CEO of this Cherry Growers Association making $1 million a year. So he gets to his peak, he gets Parkinson's, game over, right? So,
Damn.
And sidebar, while he was gone, my mom had schizophrenic, bipolar, I think she was on painkillers. something. But me and my brother would get locked up for 8 hours a day. No toys, no bathroom, no food. It was crazy.
Why would you guys get locked up?
Because I don't know. She'd go sleep all day.
Mm.
She just couldn't handle being a parent. She wrote letters to my grandma saying, I wish I'd never had kids.
Damn.
Mental illness. You know, it happens to people, right? I don't judge. Like, I've had kids. I had some moments where I'm like, holy shit, this is hard. It happens to people. So anyways, I buried my brother a year ago in Colombia, drank himself to death. And we had mold growing up. We all had Lyme disease, just a diseased, chronically ill family, right? And so the reason I'm explaining all of this is because when I was 25, my dad told me he had Parkinson's and I had my first daughter. I have my dream job at 20th Century Fox. At 25 years old, I'm making $120,000 a year, met my goal. I'm the social media director at 20th Century Fox, working on Planet of the Apes, working on X-Men movie, and I hated it. I was like, this sucks. This job sucks. I can't see my daughter. My dad's got Parkinson's. I called him. I'm like, Dad, you need to leave Mom. He moved out the next day. So my whole life is like going crazy, right? All these life changes. And I just thought, I'm like, I'm not going to do this. I can't do this like he did. So I decided to start my company. And I had like $70 in a laptop. And I left that job. I had a little like severance pay, whatever. And I said, I'm just gonna go sell what I do as a service. And if I don't have a client within 3 months, I'll just go get a job. And it was at 4 months I got my first client. We, living off the credit card and everything. And then that first year we did $850,000 in revenue with just me. And I had no employees. I just hired contractors.
How did you make that $850,000?
So I chased people around at conferences. I pretended to be an executive at Hulu to get into a bunch of after parties. And I got the numbers of all these influencers like Logan Paul and all these guys. And then I also networked into decision makers at brands. So I was doing influencer deals with Acura, Polaroid, Latam Airlines. Because I was at an agency before that. And we made the most viral ad of all time. It was Kobe Bryant, Lionel Messi for Turkish Airlines. Got 160 million views. That's what I did, right? I was a viral video marketing guy. Most viral video ad of all time, still to this day. And so I was selling that, right? That was my case study. And so I was selling influencer integrations, brand deals. I was doing video production and ad buying. And so I put all these different things that I did on that big project. I just packaged that into an agency, agency model. And so, yeah, first year, just me, we did 850. I had a couple partners. They didn't work out, so they bounced. Next year, we did 1.5, then 2, then 3, then 6, then 14.
Damn.
It doubled every year. The chart was like this. And then I got bored. I got bored. It felt like Groundhog Day. And so a broker reached out, and they're like, hey, we think we could sell this. And I'm like, what? Why would anyone want to buy this? You're going to buy a bunch of people with no assets?
How many people did you have on your team at that time?
It was like 110 employees.
All on payroll?
All on payroll.
Damn.
And we had about 200 contractors.
And you were doing top line 14?
Top line, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was it, man.
Damn.
So my advice to everybody is...
hold on real quick. And so when the broker reached out to you and you're like, fuck it, let's sell it. Was it a quick process? You had a lot of offers, or it was just like
6 months?
6 months, okay.
6 months, 2 months of prepping us.
Yeah.
And 4 months going to market.
Okay.
We got 12 offers, and 5 of the offers were real offers. And 3 of the offers were over 10 million. And we took the second highest offer because
certainty of close.
We didn't have to keep working.
Right.
The highest offer, we had to work for another year.
Can you share what the highest number was?
Okay, so it was a higher cash number.
Got it.
Yeah. So the deal we took was 12 million cash. That one was 13 million cash.
Got it.
So the 17 million, we had more upside. They wanted to keep the company exactly as it was. The other offer, they wanted to take out the name and they wanted to cut 30% of the team. So I could have got more cash in that deal, but I couldn't live with that. You know?
I'm curious, when you take a business like that to sell, does the broker do like a call for offers and date? And so I say, hey, we're going to give all the buying parties 2 months to do their due diligence and put together their best offer. We're going to have a call for offers date, or do you guys take offers as they come?
It's the first one.
The first one.
The broker,
you have a call for offers date that
the
you
broker
set.
packages it for you.
Yeah.
They lay it before you, and then you have calls with your top 4 options. You interview them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know, the highest offer, I just like wasn't vibing with those guys. Those guys were, you know, they were like ruthless private equity guys.
And then once you go under contract with really like that ruthless,
like they're like, we're gonna come in, we're gonna slash it, and we're gonna do this and this. I'm like, not with my company, or not.
Yeah.
The other guys.
What were they wanting to do when you say slash it? Like slash expenses?
We're gonna cut 30% of staff, and we're gonna, you know, milk this, and then we're gonna churn and burn it. Basically. The other guys were like these Midwestern guys from Ohio that look like your dad, at least my dad. They got like the Columbia vest on, those private equity guys, right? And they're like, hey, this thing's doubled every year, 7 years. We're in manufacturing. COVID has wrecked our portfolio. We've got a directive to diversify. The problem, though, is they didn't know anything about our industry. So they made a lot of mistakes. So I don't know, man. It's a crazy deal.
What was your biggest takeaway for the listeners listening to this? You mentioned you got into all this thing, and then you just woke up in year 7. You're like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I got bored. And what's your biggest takeaway for a listener listening to this?
What? For selling? For how to feel about selling?
I had cut you off, and you were like, you were saying, hey, you're talking about your dad and your mother, and your brother passed away in Colombia, and then you were making $120,000 a year, and then you decided you're going to start your own business. You did $850. And then how you're talking about how you pretended to be the director for Hulu, and you got into these rooms, you met Logan Paul, you made all these contacts, and then you grew it, and you doubled your revenue every single year for 7 years, and then you woke up one day and you said, I'm bored, I'm going to sell it. And you said, my advice for someone listening, and I cut you off. What were you going to say there?
I don't know. I got advice. I can come up with some advice. I probably forgot, but I guess my advice is that if you hate your life or you hate the way you're going, like, you got to change it. So you don't be like, my dad's the best guy ever, right? But he just didn't know. He grew up on a small farm in Utah. He was doing the best he could with the knowledge he had, right? There was no internet. There was no figuring out. You couldn't even start. How do you even start a company in the 80s? I don't even know how people did it, you know? But now, like, you got all these resources. You can listen to Rich anytime you want, right? So you can fix. If your life's not the way you want it, you can change it, you know? And sometimes that's just getting a better job, right? My other point of advice, as far as the exiting of a company goes, is the thing I wish I had done is that when I sold it, I wish I had really like separated from it. But instead, right, it was my baby, and my identity was so wrapped up in it that it just like killed me, that it didn't keep going, that it went down, you know? But like, if you sell, you sold. You gotta like, you know, you gotta accept that and move on. And so my identity was super wrapped up in that company.
Yeah, what did that feel like? Because I've always been curious. I mean, this has been your baby for 7 years, and that was your identity. That was everything. And so, like, for me, like, for example, like real estate investing, the fund that we have, and all the real estate that we're buying, if this was just gone tomorrow, I don't know how I would feel. What did that feel like for you?
Yeah, it was hard, dude. I got really sick. It was bad. I got really depressed. I didn't know what to do with the money. That was stressful. I was more stressed with $6 million cash than I had ever been. And I didn't know who to talk to. And I would call people and be like, hey, what do I do about like tax stuff? And people didn't really want to talk about what they're doing with their tax stuff. You know, it's kind of personal. So it was weird, man, because I spent all day working with my business partner and all these people. And then all of a sudden, poof, I'm just a guy in Boise. What do I do? You know, it was so much harder than I thought, because I thought, I'm going to sell this company, and everyone's like, what are you going to do next? I'm like, nothing. I'm just going to hang out, you know? Yeah, it doesn't work so good.
What did you do with your money right away?
So I threw $1 million into a real estate fund that pays monthly.
Okay.
I think they paid 8%
Okay.
to 10% on a monthly basis. I put $2.3 million into chamber stays to build Outpost X and to get Puerto Rico project started. I think I did like $500,000 of private company investments. Yeah, I invested in all sorts of companies. I think there's a solid like $1 million of it where I don't even really know where it went. Like, I think
Just for fun, travel a little bit.
I
You
think
gotta enjoy a little bit.
It just went somewhere, you know.
Yeah.
What else did I do? I did a handful of other things, but dude, I didn't. It was like paralyzing because I had no plan when the exit happened. I didn't think it was going to happen.
Oh yeah, because I mean those things can fall through and fall apart for any reason.
They never happen.
Yeah,
right?
You can't count until the money hits your account.
Well, what happens if the company that you've accepted their offer on changes their mind?
Mm-hmm.
You got to go through the whole process over again.
It happens in these real estate transactions all the time, where you get into escrow, get through due diligence. I mean, shit. Us as buyers have pulled out of deals. I was selling a deal earlier this year, a small apartment building out in Cincinnati, and the buyer pulled out last minute, and I was under contract on another deal that was contingent on this one selling because I was going to 1031 those proceeds, and that seller was like banking on me, right? And so they could do their own thing, and so it all fell apart. And so I guess my point is that these things fall apart all the time. Now, this is a much bigger scale what you're talking about.
The insight for your listeners on what you just said is real estate is a volume game, and you got to get contingencies. Half the offers I made for properties for chamber stays fell through. I had a church I was going to buy in Orlando, fell through. I had a mountainside in Ohio. There was a meth head that I couldn't get out of there to access the property, so I got out. But yeah, dude, I didn't think it was going to happen. And one morning I wake up to a text message and it says, "Merry Christmas." I was like, "What? What do you mean Merry Christmas?" He's like, "Check your bank account." I check it. There's like $6 million sitting there. And I'm like, what just happened? The most money I had ever made in a year was like, you know, you never take all the profits out of your company, right?
Yeah.
The most I had ever paid myself was like $600,000. You know? And I'm doing it. $600,000
in a year.
I mean, I didn't grow up super rich and I live in Idaho. $600,000's balling, dude.
Yeah.
Built a lake house on that, you know? But that was crazy.
Damn.
$6 million. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I have 3 months till the tax year's over. What do I do, right? That was crazy. That was a confusing time. If anybody listens to this, if you have an exit and you get into that spot, hit me up, because it can be a real tough process, man.
It's the same thing for like a lot of like NFL players, pro athletes that I mean that's their entire identity is making money as an athlete. Yeah, I've had like
Tom Brady's a pretty good example of what happens when you leave.
Yeah, there's a good example right there.
Yeah.
But I had on guys like you know, Golden Tate, Antoine Bethea, like some of these like NFL Pro Bowlers, and like they're talking like, dude, like yeah, like your career is you're only like young mid-30s, which is like young, and like all of a sudden it's like, okay, what's next? This is just like stripped from you. It ends like that. And so I mean, you've done a lot. You're relatively young. How old are you?
36.
Yeah, fuck, he's done a lot.
How old do you think I was?
I was gonna guess like around mid to late 30s.
How old are you?
I'm 39.
39. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you've done a lot for 36.
Dude, we have done a lot, bro.
Yeah.
We have done a lot. Yeah, I made that 6 month 33.
Because 36 is, I mean, you're just getting warmed up.
You know, I didn't realize that though.
This is just the beginning.
Dude, at 33, I got really sick, so I felt old, right? And I didn't know what to do with my money. I didn't know. And then now I have no income. Well, I had some income. I had that real estate fund I was in, but that's not a lot. So here's what blew me away. Okay. I was like, okay, right at my peak, I paid myself $600,000. We did like $1.5 million in profit. Ad agencies are a low margin business. I would recommend you guys not do it. It's not a good business model. That's a business model you start when you don't have any money.
Why is it not a good business model?
Because you're in a low level services business. High friction, high problems. You already graduated to assets. If you started ad agency, you're going backwards. You don't want to do that. Your coaching class is way better business than an ad agency. Way better. So anyways, $6 million, right? So I owe $2 million in taxes. That's $4 million. If I make 8% on that and then pay taxes, I'm not balling at all.
No. And did
Not
you
at all.
did you have any like tax advantage strategies to roll that $6 million into, or did you end up
It was the
having a big
opportunity
tax
zone.
event?
It was opportunity zone.
Okay, got it.
So I wrote off $1 million.
Okay,
I also found a way to write off some cars by doing retreats.
interesting.
That's a good hack, by the way.
How do you do that?
So I held some wellness retreats at my lake house,
Okay.
and part of the retreat was you could drive my cars
Mm,
and snowmobiles, and so I wrote off all that stuff.
that's pretty dope.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep. So in a few years, if I'm not audited, I'll be able to say it worked.
Mm. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I was hanging out randomly the other night. This is actually not the other night. This is a couple months ago. With the founder of ClickUp, Zeb Evans, and we were just rapping fucking back and forth, man, on just business and like all this. He had all these takeaways, but he's like you. He's 35, so mid-30s. He's got 2,000 employees. His company's valued right now like $5 billion. He's trying to take it to $20 billion in like the next year and a half, and he's gonna have this massive like he's gonna go public. And I'm just like, fucking this kid's 30, this kid's 35, bro, and he's in my fucking kitchen. He's in my kitchen with me, and we're fucking drinking wine, just me and him, like literally talking shop.
You can make a lot of money
Drinking
just
wine.
kidnapping him, bro. just like what do you call that? When you kidnap somebody for
Hostage?
a ransom.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can make
hostage
a lot of
ransom.
money off that guy. Just sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So anyways, this kid's 35, and we're just in my kitchen drinking wine for like hours and hours, literally all night long. And this guy, we're just talking shop, and like the fucking stories and the fucking knowledge and the wisdom that's coming out of this kid's mouth at 35 is just blowing me away, dude. And it makes you realize, I'm like, man, there's fucking levels to the game. And, I don't even know where this kid's going to go when he's 45, 55, 65. You know what I'm saying? Like, I interviewed Grant Cardone, and the guy's 65 years old, and he's got a lot of juice left in the tank. He's just getting warmed up, and
He looks good for 65.
Yeah, and it makes you realize it's like this game is all mental.
We think
What we think is old is not really old.
we're not.
Yeah.
I just finally started letting that sink in the last year.
Mm,
Just the last year.
mm.
Yeah. See, I was
I'm-
looking at it from a scarcity perspective of like, oh man, like I'm not like in my youth anymore. Like, I'm getting older. Like, that's how I was looking at it, you know?
Mhm.
So, but yeah, we have so much time. So much time.
We do. For me, I mean, and for listeners listening to this right now, like, I think I'm a perfect example. I was 11-year air traffic controller. At age 33, I discovered real estate, and I discovered business for the first time. And that's when I decided to cash out my 401k and get in the real estate game and completely make this pivot at 33, which a lot of people say, like, that's pretty late to make a pivot like that. And now at 39, I'm like, dude, I'm just getting fucking warmed up. Like, this is just the beginning.
I feel that, man. That's how I feel too.
Yeah, you feel that too.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I'm curious, with this 17...
It doesn't feel that way when you don't have a business, though. When you're 33 and you just kind of like sold the thing, I was like, what now?
Mm.
I was very
Were you
confused.
33 when you sold it?
Yeah.
Damn.
I was like very confused, man. It's been a weird 3 years. I feel like I'm just coming out of it this last, like, honestly, since Outpost started pumping, I feel like I'm coming out of it.
Mm.
Like, okay, I have a really good,
Because it's giving you something to be proud of. It's growth and progress.
that's what it is. And for 3 years, I haven't really paid myself. Outpost is like, that's not supposed to work by any measure, right? I have someone, who really inspired me was Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he retired at 33 from bodybuilding. And I'll be honest, you're more famous right now than Arnold Schwarzenegger was at 33.
Mm.
He was a world famous bodybuilder, but he was only famous to a very small group of people.
Because, there was no social media back then.
33-year-old Arnold was very quickly very irrelevant. He had a few apartment rentals, so he was fine, right? But he wasn't rich. He was just a bodybuilder. He spent 4 years auditioning and got nothing.
Yeah, dude, I watched that documentary on Netflix. It's so good, by the way.
So he retired the same age I retired, right? And that was my plan. I'm just going to retire. But then all of a sudden I'm like, $4 million. Wait a second. I don't know how to live on this crap, right?
Mm.
But yeah, man, he got his first movie at 36, and then he didn't get his first big break till like 37, 38 with Conan. So there's a 4-year gap where like Arnold just didn't exist in the world.
Yeah,
which is
it's inspiring. But you know what's even more inspiring when I think about Arnold is like this man grew up in like the outskirts of some poor fucking town in rural Austria,
raised by a Nazi.
Yeah, and it was never ever to become. It was never supposed to become anything. And this guy, is training in these fucking Mickey Mouse gyms and push-ups and all this stuff. Like, doesn't have the best equipment, and is dreaming of like living in America and becoming this thing, and becomes the world's best number one bodybuilder in the fucking entire world. And then in addition to that, then goes on to live this entire different chapter and becomes the top like number one actor, movie star in fucking America, where he doesn't even speak any English as a kid growing up. And then lives this fucking entirely third life where he becomes governor of California.
And he's the son of a guy of a group that had just lost a war and was drinking themselves into oblivion.
And so it makes you realize like you can really accomplish anything you want to accomplish if you put your mind to it.
Stallone too, same story, man. Those guys just have so much self-belief and drive. But Arnold, it's also his Achilles heel, right? It's also brought him a lot of sadness. Like as governor, he didn't see his family very much, and he lost a lot too because of that drive. So that drive's got to be kept in check. But that's the crazy thing. My old business partner, Stefan, he's like my blood brother, right? He told me, he's like, dude, you realize like if you have social media right now, you're like more relevant than Arnold was at 33, just because of the day and age we live in. So you think about that, it's like, man, what can you achieve with the reach that we have now? Like back then, like you had to be a movie star to have any relevance or influence. Now you could just be some guy on Instagram talking on a podcast,
Yeah. And that's why I say, I'm like, man, like I hear like you said at the top of the show, you're like, dude, this is like the winter season for like the world right now. Everyone's complaining. Everyone has negative energy. Everyone says, hey, like the world's out to get them. Everyone has the victim mentality. But I'm like, no, this is the best fucking era ever to be alive. The playing field for the first time ever, because of social media, is now level for everyone. There's 4.8 billion people on social media, and there's 40 million baby boomers retiring between now and the next 7 years. They're calling it the greatest transfer of wealth in American history. It's about to go down, and the fucking playing field has now been leveled because of social media. And so for anyone out there listening to this that is not excited, that is fucking surrounded by negative energy and thinks that they don't have a fucking chance, you need to fucking wake up.
Crazy.
You need to fucking start hanging out with different people, and you need to fucking rise to the occasion, because whatever you want to accomplish in this world, you can accomplish. And the best time to do it is starting right fucking now. It's starting today. Don't
be a bitch.
Yeah.
Don't be a loser. We're in the best time.
This is the best time.
It's really gratitude. It's like, they say there's a cost of living crisis. It's like, no. There's a quality of living crisis. You know what people lived in 40 years ago?
What?
They lived in 1,600 square foot houses with no air conditioning.
Oh.
And had one car.
Yeah.
And they were the richest people on earth. Come on, guys. Like, have you ever looked at a map of air conditioning in the world? America and Japan have 90% homes that are air conditioned. Most of the rest of the world's below 5 to 10%.
Damn.
Like, air conditioning is a new thing. It's like the resources we have is crazy. Like, remember when I said, how would you start a business in the 80s? How would you?
How would you?
I don't know.
There's no social media. There's no AI.
You just have to have
There's
your
no
family.
cell phones.
Your family just has to have money. Or you got to have somebody who gives you money. Like, I don't know. I don't even know how you do it.
It's so easy to start a business today.
It's so easy, man.
It takes 3 hours to form an LLC.
It's not easy to make money. Our girl, I'm sure you love her too. She's what's her name? She's the one that talks about small business blue collar businesses. Cody
Cody
Sanchez.
Sanchez.
She's the man, dude. I love Cody Sanchez.
Yeah. She's the woman.
She's talking about, she's like, she's saying like, it's like 5% of businesses make it to 1 million.
Is that how low it is?
And yeah, it's Tony said these numbers too. The numbers are insane. It's like 99% of people who own a business never make more than 60 grand a year. It's some crazy stat. Yeah.
That is crazy.
So it's like, it's easy to start it, but it's also still hard. It's still hard.
It still is hard. And I think that a lot of people give up too early. Like one of my favorite lines is, businesses don't fail because they run out of money. Businesses fail because the entrepreneur gives up.
What'd you make your first year?
So for me, it's interesting because I've always been, syndicating and buying real estate, and I'll buy smaller deals on my own, right? And so
you
my
kind of had some flow.
Yeah.
going.
So my first big win as a real estate investor was this 32 unit building that I bought with two partners in 2019. We all cashed out our 401ks, and I used that 401k money to buy an 11 unit building in Cincinnati that I bought for $350,000. I put 25% down. In the other part of that 401k, I partnered with two other partners, and we bought a 32 unit building in Indianapolis. And this is my first win as a real estate investor. We bought it for 1.1 and we sold it for 3.1. And that was my big win. And I rolled in that entire thing into a 1031 exchange, which is my luxury Scottsdale property, which I bought for 2.4. I bought that on a bridge loan. I put $800,000 into it, so I was all in for 3.2. It refinanced at 4.89, and that thing does about $600,000 a year in gross revenue as a luxury Airbnb. So that was my first big win. But anyways, I didn't really get into like the business part of like real estate investing until I started like a property management business, and that was kind of like, I'll put it out there right now. Property management businesses are a bunch of headaches. It's putting out fires. It's thankless. It's not really a scalable thing.
No one's got rich from property management.
We do it because it gives us full control. It allows us to self-operate. It allows us to pivot. It allows us to, be fully integrated. But then the online communities, right? Those are cash businesses. And so that was the first time I really started learning about marketing, sales, onboarding, fulfillment, all that sort of stuff, right? And like building a team. So all this stuff is really new to me. And I'm building out a team, and it's like, okay, I'm managing a team that's, we got property management. We got guests checking into these properties and checking out. We're driving reviews, and then we got repair maintenance requests, right? Those work orders need to be fixed. And then that's one business, right? And then it's a whole other business to be like the content and the podcast. That's a whole other business, right? That's marketing. And then in addition to that, we got investors, right? So now we got investors. And so it's like onboarding investors. We're doing investor reporting. We're doing distributions. That's a whole nother thing, right? And then it's renovating the properties, identifying the properties, buying them, getting the debt, the design element on them, managing the renovation. Where's all the capital going? Money in, money out.
And this is everyone listen. This is why business is hard. 99% of people could not keep all that together.
Yeah, I think my biggest challenge right now, dude.
Because you got to find people to do all that.
Yeah, you got to find people.
Which is the hardest part.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard to find people that can do that you can rely on, that aren't asking for a raise every 5 seconds. It's so hard,
Yeah, I think my biggest challenge right now is like my attention is pulled in a lot of different directions, but it all kind of goes hand in hand, right? And so if you think about it, like for me, and sometimes I think about that, I'm like, there's not really, if you really, because I hear people all the time say, hey, get into real estate investing, get passive income, financial freedom, you can go travel, and like, this is the way to live life. And I hear that, and when I hear people say that, I'm like, no, I don't think there's any such thing as like passive. Like it's passive if you're investing as a limited partner and you're just wiring in your money. Like our investors, it's passive for them. But like for all of our investors, like they're busy building their own thing. No, and they're just parking money.
The 4-hour work week, it doesn't exist.
No.
Like, sorry, whatever his name is, Tim, what's his name that wrote that book?
Tim Grover, I want to say.
I can't remember.
Tim something.
That's
not Tim. It was not Tim Grover. Tim Grover.
I will say, I read that book, and I was like, 4-hour work week? What? And then fortunately I was wise enough to be like, there's no way. And then the next book I read was called $100 Startup. And that changed my life because that book is about 30 people who started companies with $100.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
So, for anyone out there that says, hey, like this is a passive thing, I'm like, no, like they're not building a big thing if they think it's passive.
No. And if you're in real estate, it's slow.
Real estate's slow.
Very slow.
It's slow.
Until you learn how to raise capital. Then it could be fast, right?
Yeah. I mean, you need two things. You need deal development and you need capital development. So you need access to good deals and you need access to capital. But that said, you can only grow as quickly as you can operate. And so when we bought our last deal in April, I was like, hey, like, let's take a pause to what we're buying and like, let's just focus on what we have and optimizing what we have. And so I felt like it would have been contradicting to go buy another deal at that time. And so we took a pause and we really focused on improving everything internally. Now, I'll say this, it is a trip for me to think like, hey, 5 years ago, I was working full-time as an air traffic controller. And now, like today, just to kind of give you like a snapshot of what's going on in my life, it's like, okay, like I have this team where they're all very like highly intelligent and like inspiring individuals. And they all left, like a lot of them all have college degrees and they were working like a really dope positions at like big companies before coming on. So they all left their careers to like come roll with me. Right. So now their future all depends on where I take this. Right. And so that's one. And then I got over 100 investors now. And so I have a lot of investor capital riding on where I take this and I want to sleep good at night. And then we got, our online communities. We got about 120 mastermind members between our 7-figure creator and our hotelinvesting.com community, where they're depending on me to come in and lead these calls and help guide them and bring on guest speakers and really help propel them into where they want to go. Right. And so that's that. I'm leading 3 calls a week doing that. I have 3 podcast interviews every single week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, those podcasts go out. So that's like 6 speaking engagements every single week. And then I'm posting twice a day on social media, all these different platforms. And then we're buying deals, right? We're renovating all these projects. We got, $80 million of real estate between the hotels, the multifamily, the apartments. We got all these guests checking in, checking out. And so there's really no going back at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like,
it's so much,
yeah,
it's so much work, man.
Yeah. And then it's like, and then you throw in all these other things, right?
Yeah.
It's like one of our hotels got flooded out.
Yep.
And then the insurance company didn't want to cover a dime. And so now we're like fronting money and we're like pulling stuff to repair stuff. And then you got to report it to the investors. Hey, this is what this is going on. But like we figured it out, like everything just went on as business as usual, but like we had to figure it out.
Propane's out at Outpost right now. I'm just trying to reciprocate here.
Propane's out. Yeah. So
I'm just trying to, yeah.
It's one of like many things. Right. And so, and then you're juggling like team members in and out and like all this stuff and shuffling. And there's always these little fires and these little bottlenecks that are constantly going on. But like the reason I just wanted to share this is like, because I think a lot of people want to get into business and a lot of people think like they see the end result and they think, oh, it must be nice. But in all reality, and you know this better than I do, it's like there is so much grind in between each week that no one sees. And as you grow, fewer and fewer people can actually relate to what you're going through because fewer and fewer people have actually done what you've done. And so, I'm always working. And I think like in the eyes of social media, like it might not look like I am and I'm like out doing cool stuff, but I never shut it off. Like even at night when I'm thinking, like I'm always thinking about how to get better. But I will say this, they could not pay me enough money to fucking go back to that damn air traffic control facility. I love a lot of those folks and I love the grind of that career and I loved it. But like they could never pay me to go back to that. And like I fucking am so obsessed with what I'm building and I'm going to build a big thing, whether it's the podcast or the real estate, like all of it, I'm going to build a really big and special thing. And there's nothing more exciting than like waking up every single morning and knowing like, hey, like this is my fucking baby.
You already have a 9-figure fund. It just hasn't happened yet. And I already have 20 other world projects. It just hasn't happened yet. But I feel you, man. I'm the same way. Like, there's no going back. Like the rate at which we're having new experiences is is what it's about. There's something that they did some study, and apparently like you've lived over half of your life by the time you're 25, because time, our concept of time is skewed by the new experiences we have. So by the time you're 30, your life's half over as far as time goes, because time speeds up. It gets faster and faster and faster and faster and faster.
It does, because it's all relevant.
All of a sudden you're 80 and you're like, what the heck just happened? I think the way you slow down time is by having new experiences, and you do it by building things that help other people have. I mean, look at all the people that are working with you right now. They might otherwise just be working some, boring job somewhere, but now they get to be a part of what all these new experiences that you're having. Is pretty cool. So
yeah. The time thing is interesting, bro, because I know like fucking
Oscar's sitting here having all these new experiences. That's so cool.
I'm 39 right now, and I'm like, yo, before I know it, I'm gonna be 60. That's only 21 years away, bro. That's gonna go away like
so fast.
It's gonna go by like that.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I don't know, man. Life is a trip, and I'm excited to kind of see where things go. But I think like what you said is true. It's really all about, at a certain point, I know for me, happiness comes from growth and progress, but I get a lot of joy of like helping other people win as well. You know what I mean?
When I was running Chamber Media, I had an identity crisis a few times, because I'm like, is this really, I'm the advertising guy? Is that really my like, and that's my place in the world? A guy who makes ads? No one likes a guy who makes ads. Like, but the only way I could find meaning in it was that I was providing an income for a lot of creatives who normally would be struggling, a lot of wedding videographers, and I was helping them graduate from being a videographer to becoming a marketer and understanding business. And so many of the people who worked at Chamber Media are now making 2 to 3 times that. Some of them are executives now. And it's just because they were a part of, they got the Chamber Media thing. They got the training. They got that little, they can take that. Because in Utah, it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as far as agencies goes, it's not really a big deal outside of Utah, but they could take that little thing. And that's been what's like made me,
dude, I love that, man.
Feel good,
There's one, I want to shout out one of the members of our hotel mastermind. His name's Cassidy Warren, and this guy joined, fucking just started moving the needle from day one. He just gets it. He's inspiring. He's charismatic. He entered the mastermind already owning 9 short-term rentals, but jumped in, bought a hotel like within his first like 3 months in the community, and he's been helping a lot of other folks already. He's already kind of one of the thought leaders organically. And so I recently decided, I'm like, hey, in order to keep scaling and growing this hotel community, I need to start promoting some of these thought leaders, right? And so I actually just basically yesterday we had a conversation. I'm like, hey, let's put together something that's a win-win for both of us. I want to help you build out your personal brand. I think that you can really help bring this mastermind to another level, but I also want you to leverage this mastermind to help build out your personal brand so you can monetize it too. And so we're going to collab. And it all started because he joined this thing, and now I'm like, he just killed it. And so now there's an opportunity for us to work together. He's going to come to the office, a handful of times every single month, and we're going to help build this thing up. But in addition, most importantly, I'm like, hey, dude, like I really want you to focus on building your personal brand. Use this as leverage to build it out so you can monetize it down the road. So I think it's going to be a win-win, but I'm excited to kind of see where it goes.
You're multiplying, man. You're multiplying, bringing people up.
Yeah. I want to switch gears here, dude. So you've had a lot of videos on your social media go viral. Talking 9 million views. Your Outpost X one got over 17 million views. But you had a video that did 9 million views on Instagram, and it said, if you make $100,000 a year, you should buy a unique rural couples getaway. Can you break down this video and this thought?
Yeah. So this video was before I had done it myself.
Okay.
So it's a little naive in some ways.
What do you mean it's before you did it yourself? You had never done this before.
No. The way I was explaining it, the model I was explaining, I hadn't actually done it. But now that I'm on the other side of building Outpost, and the way I did it's just totally different. But what I was basically describing in the video is if you make $100,000 a year, this is how you could make like an extra $50,000, and it's just by like seller financing land and getting the most basic glamping setup you can, and then you're getting a pretty low rate. It's like maybe $270, $350 a night, depending on what it is. You got to be in the right spot too. Because I know some people that have a setup like that, they're in the wrong spot. And it's got to be in a spot where the permitting and zoning is not too expensive. Because that video and what I'm explaining can really quickly get out of control. If all of a sudden you got to build a road, if all of a sudden the county says that you've got to connect to the grid, there's a lot of ways to really quickly have a problem. But if you know enough about planning and zoning, or you get a really good mentor kind of like holding you by the hand, and you can really do it right, it's possible. It's really possible. And I know a lot. Here's what happened is, I think the reason the video went viral is because everyone was arguing in the comments. So a majority of people are like, there's no way. Like, how are you going to clean it? This sound, it's people's mindset. It's like the sheeple's mindset.
Yeah. There's always going to be a bunch of naysayers, but I also realize when a video starts to go viral, the algorithm starts to push it to people that don't follow you, and people that a bunch of random people will start to see it, and they might be people that are not even in the real estate investing or business space, and they're seeing it because it's eye catching. But those are the naysayers.
I mean, imagine when Elon goes in a room and he's like, "We're gonna catch the largest structure ever made."
Yeah, people are like, "You're full of shit."
On a chopsticks.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
But here's funny thing though, is there's hundreds of people in the comments that are like, "Nope, it's true, I did it."
Yeah. No, so, I feel you. Okay, another video. Yeah. So you had one that got 5.4 million views. It said, "A good boss will ... pay based on performance," and all this other stuff, and have mandatory PTO. Talk about that. Like, walk me through that entire video, the hook and everything.
So like, employment as a whole is becoming like a negative concept in our generation, right? Like, being an employee is bad. So it's like, well, if you're an employer, there's like, most people are going to be employees. It's not everyone that can handle the late nights and the excruciating challenges and anxieties around building a business. And so, me and you, like, our role is to be good employers, because there's people that need to be employees. And so what do they need? Well, they need performance pay, so they've got some kind of upside, right? They feel like they're progressing. They need to have education and training. And in my opinion, that's by far the most important thing you can give an employee, is just helping them with personal development. I look at Chamber Media. People didn't make tons of money working at Chamber Media. Advertising is a low income business. But what they did is they became marketers, they became executives, they became performance oriented because of that. So that was a big perk. And then the other things, I'm mandatory PTO too. I've done a lot of different structures around that. We actually did a 4-day work week for the last 4 years of Chamber Media. And we tried the open-ended PTO thing, and I'm not a fan of it. I think people should have an exact amount of PTO, and then they should be required to take it.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because this is an interesting topic. The PTO thing, and then the 4-day work week as well. It's really two different things, but it's one bucket. For me, what we run here at Summers Capital is we have unlimited PTO. Now, when I say unlimited PTO, this means I've never actually denied anyone's leave. And anyone that wants to request time off, they can request time off. But with a lot of the aspects of the business, like, they might have to still do some work while they're off. So it's not truly a day off. For example, we have VAs that do a lot of the guest checking in and guest checking out, repair, maintenance stuff. But if there's an emergency at a property, the VAs in the Philippines, it gets escalated above them, right? And then one of the team members that is on the day off might get brought into this situation until it's resolved, right? And so there's always going to be caveats. But the bonus is, hey, like, if you want to work remote, or you want to take a day off, whatever, like, or you want to take a week off, like, you can do that. It's unlimited. Just don't abuse it. And that's always been my policy. I'm like, hey, we have unlimited PTO here. I'm not going to look when you check in, when there's no checking in, clocking out. You can show up when you want to show up. But for the most part, like, don't abuse it. And that's kind of how we've run it. For the most part, no one's really abused it.
I got a theory.
Yeah.
I think the PTO thing depends on the quality of people you have.
Mm,
I think unlimited PTO works for a high performer
okay.
because a high performer is really driven.
Hmm.
So you don't really have to worry about them abusing it.
Yeah.
Because they're focused on advancing their development and their career, and they're in that season of their lives
Right.
of performance. If you got a lot of people in an industry that aren't that way, which is usually videographers at my business, videographers just be chilling, man. Like most of them, they don't have big goals, ambitions. They're just chilling, you know? So hey, you're not a videographer. You are a director of photography.
Well, Oscar has his own
Oscar.
business. He has his own business. He has his own agency.
You're not a videographer, bro.
Yeah. He has his own agency.
You're so much more than that.
Yeah.
But but I think it depends on the business, because if you got high paid people that are really high performing, then unlimited PTO works. I think if you're in a low margin business where people don't make a ton of money, which is advertising, at least maybe at like the middle, lower level, I feel like the PTO has got to be like, it's got to be like mandatory and fixed so that they feel like they're entitled to time off. But I don't know, man. I feel like some people, it stresses them out, you know, otherwise. So, but we did the 4-day work week, and that was
Tell
really
me about
interesting.
that.
So I did it for myself because I was like, you know, I want Fridays off. I don't want people bothering me on Friday. And then the other thing too is we were in a creative industry, and so creatives are motivated differently. So finance people are motivated and driven, and they're very logical and left brain. But you got a creative business, those people, like, a lot of them don't even care about money. They care about time, you know? And so they're not really willing to sacrifice their time. And so I thought, you know, maybe like the biggest recruiting thing we can do and cultural thing we could do is have a 4-day work week. And I will say too, like, we paid people pretty much industry standard rates, but they only worked 4 days a week.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
So it was like added compensation.
Did the output go up or down?
So when we were small, the 4-day work week was awesome. When we got to 100 employees, it was a disaster.
Why?
I'd show up. So I wasn't at the office. I never was. The office was in Utah. I lived in Boise. It's one of the main reasons I was able to sell the company, actually.
Oh, because they saw that you were able to run it remotely.
Yeah.
Damn,
I think
that's
if I
kinda
lived
crazy.
there, maybe not.
Mm.
But I remember when I would go down there, when we were at 100 employees, and by the way, like, I'm not a real political person, but we had about 20 blue-haired people get into the organization at some point. Freaking poison. No offense to people, political affiliation, but there's a certain group of people that the middle level management hired at Chamber that were just horrible, negative. The culture just really took a dive after I left. There wasn't enough like dynamic leadership. There wasn't enough pressure. There wasn't enough. It just was floating.
What did these blue-haired individuals do to the company? Be a little bit more specific.
Just toxic, man. Toxic negativity. I don't know how to explain it. Like extremely political people that have bought into this victim ideology that just doesn't work well for like doing good work. And these people, man, when the company started to struggle, they were all the first ones to get laid off because they didn't perform. So, but man, during that period, right after I sold it and stuff, like I would come in there at like 10 a.m. and half the office would be empty. And then I'd be there and at 4:30 and half the thing would be empty. And I'm like,
When it first got sold?
yeah. And what's crazy is during that time, people were complaining the most ever about how much they were making. When I was there, people didn't, when I was driving that organization, right? People felt a part of something. They felt, I go in there and just get people freaking pumped. And it was like, we were going for this thing. People never complained. People didn't complain. Like, people loved the culture. Like our Glassdoor was like glowing Glassdoor.
What's the Glassdoor? What's that mean?
Glassdoor is employee reviews of where they work. And oh man, people loved working there. I had people telling me this is the best job I've ever had, you know? And it was a great culture. And then it took a dive and yeah, dude, I started realizing, I'm like, People are complaining about how much money they make. They're working like 30 hours a week. Like, this is crazy. It's entitlement. It's middle-level people. They brought in people who are entitled, who don't have.
That's my number one pet peeve is people that are entitled.
They literally hired people who don't have an accurate understanding of the world. They're like really young. They've been raised on social media.
They don't understand how money works.
They've been told all this toxic bullshit about how the world, they don't know how money works. They never made money. They never had a real job.
They've been handed a lot of things growing up.
Yeah.
Never had to go out in the real world and actually like experience what it's like to grind and hustle.
Yeah. Crazy group of people, man.
Yeah.
Gotta avoid those people like the plague.
What's your number one?
They need to be like sandwich artists. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm curious.
Don't trust them with the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm curious because actually I was talking to Zeb Evans, the founder of ClickUp, about this kind of same thing, but curious your thoughts. Like, what's your number one way to weed those folks out in an interview process?
Oh, dude, I don't know. I never even took interviews with people like that. So I would say if they make excuses in the interview about anything, that's it. It's the way they talk about their life, the way they talk about their performance. If at any point they're like, well, so-and-so did this, or my last boss was horrible because this and this, you know, that little complainy thing, that means that they're not self-actualized. They're not taking responsibility in their life yet. It means they haven't had like strong parenting. They haven't had like a strong leadership influence in their life, you know? And I don't know. Look, there's a time and place to help people learn that, but it ain't with me.
No.
I don't want to freaking
not on your payroll.
It's not my job to freaking teach people how to work. And
yeah.
So I want people who know how to work and give them the world. You know what I mean? So.
And so when you would find like that rock star that would join your team, the one that's moving the needle, they get it, they're picking it up quick, they're like thinking 2 steps ahead of what you're already thinking, and they're helping you grow it. Like for me, and I'm curious on how you approach these individuals, but for me, I've always learned like, hey, like identify those people right away. Like for me, I haven't even waited till 90 days. I'm like, I'll acknowledge them sooner, and I'll take care of them. I'll promote them. I'll give them pay raises, because I don't want to ever lose those people. You know, how what's your thought process on treating those folks?
Equity, yeah.
Equity,
profit sharing,
profit sharing,
or equity. Like
how would you structure profit sharing or equity with your company?
The guy I just had, he just quit. He got burned out, but I had him on an equity vesting schedule. And then I've done profit share on stuff too. So, yeah, I think you got to get him tied into the upside is kind of what I think.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, dude, this whole thing is crazy to think about, but my takeaway is like that company, we had such an informal, lax culture, and it worked when we were small, and it worked really well, and people loved their jobs and they worked hard. When the company got big, that culture didn't work. And the biggest mistake I made is I never fired anybody.
Never fired one person.
Dude, I was a softie, man.
Really?
I was young, dude. I was a softie. Like people, like one guy didn't show up to work for 2 weeks, and he came into a meeting and he was like falling asleep. Clearly had gone on some kind of cocaine bender or something. I don't know what happened. And I'm like, it's all right, man. Hey, how are you? You know, like, let's get back to work here, you know? And then, yeah, so that guy ended up stealing from me. But yeah, I've learned since, like, man, you can't be too soft, and you gotta kind of have a structure.
You gotta have a line.
It's gotta have a little level of that corporate structure, you know, to have that organization run. So, but that was a lesson I had to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. Dropping value. This is probably the longest podcast episode I've ever had, and dude, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I'm a big fan of everything that you're doing. Travis, where can the folks get in touch with you?
Yeah, Travis _Chambers. Travis _Chambers on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active. So DM me. I check my message requests all the time.
Yes, and if you're listening to this, you got to go check out Outpost X. I'm personally gonna go out there and visit And looking forward to connecting again in person. You are a fucking G. He's Travis Chambers. I'm Rich Chambers. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.